Executive Officer of the IEBC, Ezra Chiloba, and other officials and commissioners. And already not such a huge crowd here, just people arriving one by one. But the police officers arrived here early enough. They've been here. I don't know whether my cameraman Karim Rajan can just try and show. Back there is a truck full of officers from the General Service Unit, that is the GSU, and also on the other side towards my right, there are other officers there just waiting for, to see what will happen here. And businesses remain open, Ken, this morning. Businesses remain open this morning along Moi Avenue, and we are waiting to see what will happen today. And also, those supporters will not only be calling for the removal of the IEBC officials, they are also saying if there are no reforms, there will be no elections. So they are also challenging the amendments to the electoral laws that have been introduced in Parliament, and they say that they have stood with. They say their stand is that of the National Super Alliance leader Raila Odinga and the other leaders, that those amendments are not in good faith. This morning we are expecting the Governor of Mombasa, Hassan Ali Joho, his Deputy William Kingi, a number of members of Parliament from Mombasa, especially those allied to the ODM party, as well as the members of County Assembly and other supporters to be involved in these demonstrations. Ken, this is the first time that Mombasa residents are demonstrating, will be involved in a demonstration, if at all it will happen, and will be here watching to update you on what will eventually happen. And my cameraman informs me that these officers actually have been making patrols around the city streets since morning, and they are just leaving the iconic Pembe za Ndovu here in Mombasa to see the situation, how the situation looks on the other side of the town. There was some confusion earlier today. There were some messages saying that the demonstrations would be starting at the iconic, at the historic Tononoka grounds, but that did not happen. We went there, we did not find anybody, and so we are waiting here at the Uhuru Gardens to see how it plays out. Ken?
Right, Peter, stay with us. Very interesting observation that there's never been a demonstration in Mombasa. This will be a first. And looking at what you said earlier about Tononoka and the fact that there are not people at Tononoka ready for this demonstration, and also you say that it's almost the first time Mombasa is being involved in a protest. So is there a likelihood that the protest in Mombasa called by the NASA leaders will fail?
Just a clarification, there was a demonstration during the Okoa Kenya campaign. It was just one, and there was a lot of tear gassing along this street. It did not last long, but eventually the leaders presented their memorandum to the IEBC officers in Vita. So this is the first time after the nullification of the election that there will be a demonstration. Leaders have been calling on residents to stay indoors. They have been saying that Mombasa is peaceful. They did not participate in the demonstrations for last week. And so today, this weekend actually, they've been having rallies. There was one in Bangladesh, that is in Jomvu constituency, and they were telling residents to come out and demonstrate today. But also yesterday we had Jubilee leaders here in Mombasa telling residents to keep off the demonstrations and also stay away from such demonstrations. So just a clarification, it's not the first time, but it's the first time after the nullification of the general election. Ken.
Right, Peter Mwangangi speaking to us from Mombasa. Peter, stay with us. We'll be checking with you throughout the afternoon regarding what's happening in Mombasa. And it's not only Mombasa that we're keeping close check on. Kisumu, we'll be getting live pictures shortly from Kisumu with Oko Kusa, and he'll be reporting live from there. We'll try and check with Bridget Ngana what's happening exactly in Nakuru and in Eldoret. Obviously, other strongholds for NASA candidates also. We'll be checking during this live broadcast right here at the Nation Center. But first, let's talk business, and we find Hudhaifa Aden just across me here in studio with the latest from that desk. Hudhaifa.
Good morning, Ken. A lot is expected to happen during this business week, but then again, we would equally be looking at how demonstration, the riots would have an impact on the local currency, the Kenyan shilling, and how the Nairobi Securities Exchange would respond to those protests and demonstrations. As you know, the market, financial markets and the capital markets in a way react to demonstration or uncertainties in the country. Of course, a lot of stuff have been happening as we were coming to the elections. A lot of investors were holding back their investment as they waited to see how Kenyans would go out and vote, and maybe if the process would be free, fair, and transparent in a way. But then again, a lot of investors are looking keenly at the demonstration as it occurs, and would be keenly watching and be bringing you as a business desk what happens and how the shilling and the NSE reacts. But beyond that, we would equally be bringing you today the Nairobi International Trade Fair is expected to kick off today. As you know, the trade fair is organized by the Agricultural Society. Of course, it is happening at Jamhuri Park. It starts today until Sunday, and a lot of activities are set to happen there. Both international, regional, and local exhibitors are expected to be there. More than 300 as the organizers have put it. But we will be bringing you everything as it happens at the International Trade Fair, Nairobi International Trade Fair. Equally, Colonel Kobil, oil marketer Colonel Kobil today is expected to pay an interim dividend of 30 cents per share to investors of record as of August 25th, when the company registered and profits for the half-year results. We will be bringing you that and many more with me, Hudhaifa Aiden.
All right, Hudhaifa, and of course, the issue of investors holding back is big. The issue of losses at the market running into billions of shillings is also huge for this country. But before I let you go, just one more question. When they say, or when the business desk reports that there are losses that have happened because of the election and the uncertainty surrounding the repeat election, do we mean exactly this is money that had come to the stock market and it went out, or it's money that was expected at the stock market but was never realized because of one reason or another? Just briefly.
It's across board, Ken. A lot of investments usually happen, and investors look at the country and they're thinking maybe we will invest in October, but because of the uncertainties they tend to hold back. And we look at that, we look at the investment that come into the country, but we equally measure that. So maybe that investment is on one side, but there is the paper wealth at the NSE. Companies trading lower, companies trading higher because of several events that happen. Some stocks usually suffer when foreign investors usually sell their shares because of uncertainties, or because maybe they think there would be chaos that would run into the later part of the year until maybe early next year. So usually there is a paper wealth that is lost, but equally investment that is investors usually hold back because of uncertainties as we head into this electioneering period. But most of investors, most of analysts are saying that there is a sense of confidence in the NSE. So maybe we look at that and see how it happens, how it develops, and we would be definitely reporting.
All right. And I'm told I have a few seconds with you. So news that you're also reporting on that we saw over the weekend when the elephant finally found its tusks somewhere. And we hear that the also iconic Nakumatt at the junction has been closed. So this makes the number what?
A number of branches were closed. I don't have the specific number as of now, but you can remember they equally closed the TRM outlet. They closed several other outlets in the country. And as this is happening to Nakumatt, several Choppies, Botswanan-owned retailer Choppies, is expanding. They are set to open a retail shop at Kiambu Mall, which is expected to be opened in later this year around December. Equally, Carrefour, the French retailer, is opening several branches. They've opened one at Two Rivers Mall, maybe expansion as we go forward.
All right. Thank you, Hudhaifa. Looking forward to the latest from the business desk a little bit later on. But first, let's take you to Kisumu, because this is one of the top stories we're following today. That is the demonstrations, and we'll be having the shots shortly on your screen from Kisumu. Oko Kusa is our man on the ground. As soon as we have them, we'll have them on your screen. Right, those are shots from Kisumu. You know, last week they called for tear gas. This morning we are told that the crowds that were forming in several streets, including the main street, that is Oginga Odinga Street in Kisumu, have been dispersed, and we see they have laid tires on the street. Okukusa is telling us that it's they've been running battles after police just rain into the demonstrators and dispersed them. So those are live pictures from Kisumu from Okukusa, who incidentally has been in the thick of the white smoke, that is tear gas, and he'll be talking to us a little bit later. But the pictures are not only in Kisumu, in Nairobi. They are just getting ready for the demonstrations. We'll also be taking you to the IBC headquarters at Anniversary Towers, that University Way. We will be going there shortly to speak to Ken Mijungu. But the other story we're reporting on is just 23 days to the election. And that means that this is October, actually. This is October. Today is the 2nd. So Fred Matiang'i, the acting Interior Cabinet Secretary, and also the Cabinet Secretary in charge of education, is addressing several issues from education to the election and security and probably police brutality. He's at the Kenya School of Government, and that's where we find Dan Mule, who will be speaking to us later. But first, let's listen in.
Led by your CEO, Madam Mercy Karogo, my colleagues from TSC, and all of you, our colleagues in the field, our sub-county directors of education and our deputy county commissioners. The exercise for which we are meeting here is very important. And let me first of all begin, as did the chairperson of the council, by very sincerely thanking all of you. In saying this, I want to be honest and say I bring very warm greetings and regards from His Excellency, our President, who asked me to communicate his personal gratitude to you for the manner in which all of you good people worked so hard last year to deliver a credible exam. I agree with Professor Magoa that there is no way, none of us is good enough to mount an important national exercise such as we are about to embark on and do it on their own. Our national examinations are a government-wide effort. That's why we always bring together government agencies that are critical to this. First of all, we have 3 ministries that are involved in this: the Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government, working with the Ministry of Education, and our colleagues at the Ministry of ICT. And this interdepartmental collaboration in government is necessary because there are various activities that have to be undertaken to ensure that we have credible exams in the final analysis. So we are very grateful that this worked very well for us last year, and we have no doubt, despite the circumstances we are doing this this year, that we will also succeed. Last year I said at many places when we opened the containers and closed the containers the evening together with our colleague teachers, that we are going to conduct the exams with a measure of military precision, that everything must go as planned, and we must ensure that we do not let our children down. As adults, as parents, as professionals, the last thing you want to do is to let our children down. We will not, and we should not let our children down. We have 1.6 million of them sitting their exams. It's an important part of their life. It's an important stage in their education. It is our responsibility to ensure that we do not let them down, we do the right thing. I hope and pray. We have a very solid collaboration with our colleagues at the Teacher Service Commission. We work well with the unions. We believe in consulting everyone and having everyone work together with us. Because really, this is about our country together. And we all have a role to play. We don't like leaving anyone out. Let's work together with everyone on board. And we've asked our education officials across the country, at all levels, at the regional level, at the county, at the sub-county level, to engage in constant consultations. Let's walk away from the mentality of trying to work on your own, in your own corner, that we work together. The silo attitude has not worked before. Every time we have attempted to work together, as we did last year, we have come out better, we have succeeded. And I'm going to encourage you that we need to work together at all levels, ensure that all the actors are involved in the discussions we are going to have. My colleagues from the Ministry of Education, you understand our change of policy, that we have to work very closely with our colleagues from the Ministry of Interior, especially the Deputy County Commissioners and the County Commissioners at the county level, all the way to the regional commissioners. So let's work together and ensure that we deliver on this. We are going to conduct and administer exams at a very interesting time. There is a lot of excitement in the air and there's a bit of politics in the air. We're having a presidential election on the 26th of October. But I want to urge all of us to keep our eye on the ball. We have a very important exercise we are doing. Let's focus on this one. And all of you good people need to know, and I want to draw your attention to the circular that was done by the Teacher Service Commission. My sister and my colleague, Nancy Masharia's circular, requiring that the teachers who are going to be involved in the officiating the elections on the 26th need to do so in consultation with their TSC directors and the directors of the counties. This is so that we don't get important critical role players in the exam process stuck in the conduct of elections. It's very important. And then we want to ask you, this is a message I want to give you, please share with our colleague teachers in the field. Those who are interested in participating, and of course the IEBC draws the bulk of its officials from among us ourselves, but those who will be participating in that, please do so in consultation with your TSC county directors and the TSC sub-county directors, so that we are all clear that we don't get, as I said, our critical role players, like the chief supervisors, chief invigilators, stuck up, in the electioneering at the expense of preparing, conducting rehearsals, and being ready for the national examinations. And because of the environment in which we find ourselves, I want to ask you kindly that we be vigilant as we go forward. Let's be keen. Stay away from as much confusion as we can to ensure that our minds are clear and we are focused on the lives of our children and as they start preparing for exams. We will have about 419 deputy county commissioners and sub-county directors of education and education officers deployed to manage the 419 examination containers across the country. We have placed containers in new sub-counties that were created recently. But I need to emphasize that because some of those sub-counties were created late after we have done the logistics of how we are going to distribute the exams, we will not use those containers during this exam. We will use them in next year's exam. So the sub-counties that were created recently, we will place, and actually we have placed containers in some of those sub-counties, but we will not use them this year because by the time they were created, we had already completed the mapping and the preparations for exams, and we do not want to cause confusion by opening up the packets and distributing the papers before they get to the containers they were designated. So the intention has been expressed. We have met the request of some of our teachers and principals who are interested in putting exams closer to them, but some of that administrative decisions came late, and we will have to live with the situation that we have until next year when we will now do a new mapping, as it were. So I want to urge you all that please, the 419 containers we have across the country, the responsibilities between the sub-county directors and the deputy county commissioners, please be diligent in managing the containers the way you were last year, as it were. Although Mr. Osia said that we didn't have any problem with the deputy county commissioners, I don't like contradicting my technical colleagues, but I do not want to have an experience like I did when we had to organize to fly a key to Kirinyaga last year, because the deputy county commissioner had misplaced the key. So we had to find a way of flying someone who's going to open that padlock and the key to that place. I do not want to be subjected to the horrors I was subjected to late in the night by a deputy county commissioner in Nakuru, who also had gone to enjoy and left the key with someone, junior, and that someone could not trace the key, and we had to scamper around looking for a way of ensuring that our people are in Nakuru in good time with a new key and to manage the opening of the container on that day. I remember, with a measure of regret, because sometimes we have to be sympathetic to people, that we had to dismiss the Sub-County Director of Education in Isinya last year because of misbehavior and because they manhandled the responsibilities that they had. Sometimes leadership brings those kinds of challenges and realities. I do not want to feel like I'm threatening my colleagues or talking down to you, my good people, but we have to reach this agreement. We must deliver on the assignment we have, and we will not play monkey business about it. We have to get the work done. I do not mind, again, repeating what we did last year. I agree with what Mr. Osia said. Our policy is very simple. This is one of those assignments we cannot play games about. I will be very happy, and I would not mind repeating it again. It is something that we would like to avoid, but if you get us to that point, you leave us with no choice, like the case we had with the Sub-County Director of Education in Isinya last year. Because if you understand the enormity of the assignment you have, the lives of our children are dependent on this, you cannot be reckless enough to go and have your drink and enjoy yourselves, and you cannot trace the key to the all-important container around your life. So you have to, we have to live with this reality. We'll call you to account, and we'll do so without mercy. Because, as Professor said, we are as strong as our weakest link. And if you're going to expose all of us on account of your irresponsibility, we should be responsible enough to get you out before you expose all of us, as it were. But I know, I mean, looking at the magnitude of this exercise and looking at the level of success we registered last year, I have no doubt in my mind that we will do it again this year. I have no doubt in my mind. That was, you know, a good way of learning. But again, quite frankly, if you're talking about 419 containers, there wasn't a single breach. We had only challenges in 3 containers where, again, it was not a breach. It was a case where officials had misplaced the keys. We replaced the keys. I think we can say we had a near 100% success in protecting the exam, and we thank God for it. So we will continue with the national monitoring of the exams as we did last year. All of us will be out. Our senior officers from all the education sector agencies will be out. Our colleagues from TSC, Kenya Education Management Institute, SEMASTER, Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, all the directors, all the senior staff, and myself, the PS, will all be involved in monitoring the exam this year, sorry. And as soon as we begin the exam, you will see and we will meet many of you in the field. This is because we believe that we cannot prescribe things to you that we should not be able to do ourselves. So we will wake up with you. We will wait long hours with you at the containers so that we experience and suffer those challenges together, so that we experience and ensure that the right thing is done for our children. And it gives us a fantastic opportunity to interact with our teachers and to be sure that we are truly serving our children. That is a job we have been given to do. We should do it with happiness, because we are not only serving our children, but we are serving our God through serving our fellow men. So, good people, we will wake up together. Don't think that we are prescribing things to you that we are not going to do. We will be together. I don't know whether the sub-county director of Emuhaya is here, Luanda. Oh yeah, very good. I woke up with you at 3. I was there at 3 a.m. in the morning. I was in Taita Taveta at 3 a.m. in the morning with the sub-county director. I was in all manner of places at the time that we were expected to be. Kisauni, 3 a.m. in the morning, Kambiamoto, and many places in this country that it gave me an opportunity to also understand and know the country. So we will do the same. That's how we are going to work this year. And by God's grace, we will go everywhere. You'll see Professor Magoa everywhere, Marsabit, Wajir. We will all be together and making sure that the plan we have put in place is effectively implemented. Lastly, I want to say this, that, you know, initially when the IEBC had told us that the elections would be held on 17th of October, we didn't have a problem with that. But when the date was moved to the 26th, it's posed a challenge for one paper, Home Science 441/3, which is the practicals for our home science students, which was scheduled to be done on the 26th. So we moved it to the Monday 30th. And that's the only change we have made on the timetable. Otherwise, the timetable remains intact as it was. You good people, more than anyone else in this country, understands that it would be disastrous if we moved exams even by 1 week. We will hurt our children because when you look at the number of teachers we need to mark the exam, and if we were to move the exam by a week or two, we'll be confronted with a harrowing experience of having to lock exams in the shelf so that we mark the exams in April. And what that means is that results are not available until June, and our students in Form 4 will have lost a whole 1 year in their university programs. None of us wants to face that kind of nightmare. It's unfair to our children. We will not accept it. So we have agreed and resolved that we will stick with the timetable as it is. Whatever sacrifices must be made, we will make them to ensure that that timetable remains as it is so that we don't hurt our children's progression. Same thing with KCPE. We cannot change the timetable because if we do, it kicks hell because it affects everything, including Form 1 selection, reporting of our children in Form 1, and so on. And you know, many teachers are involved in this exercise. So if we alter the timetable, we have very short timelines and very strict timelines to work with. So we don't want to disrupt the lives of our children, and I don't want to deal with the nightmare of having to relook at term dates in January. Because if you disrupt those dates, it will take almost 3 or so years to correct that and get it back to where it is. So I want to assure you, and I want to assure the country, that we will make all the sacrifices necessary to ensure that the exam is administered, conducted at the time it was scheduled to be conducted. And all of you, my brothers and sisters, it is time for us to make that important contribution we must make to the lives of our children by ensuring we do that. Lastly, I wish us well, and I would like to assure us that you have all the support you need from the government to ensure that this exercise is a success. All of us, my colleague Joe Musheru, the Minister for ICT, and myself are in constant communication. All the departmental planning and mobilization has been done. We are ready. We have no excuse at all because we have even been given the money by the Exchequer that we need to conduct this exercise. So we do not have any excuse for failure. We are ready completely. We are sorted out, and because of the importance of this exercise, our leaders, led by the President himself, are keen to be sure that everything we need is provided to us, and we have it. So let's go forth and do the right thing for our country, work as effectively as we must, conduct these examinations with, as I said, a measure of military precision. Everything must go as planned. The papers will move to the containers on the dates and the hours they are meant to move. They will be received at the containers at the time we expect they will be received there. The recording, when the papers are distributed, must happen at the time we have agreed. NEC is going to issue the final circular on the times for picking the papers. The times must be followed, and the times for returning the papers must also be followed. We have worked the fine details, including when examiners are supposed to report where. Everything must go according to plan. We will not have anything disrupted. And we pray that by the grace of God, we are all kept by the Lord Almighty in good health so that we can do this important exercise for the 1.6 million of our children. May God bless you and thank you.
Well, that was CS Fred Matiang'i, Acting Interior Cabinet Secretary and Education Cabinet Secretary, speaking there to education stakeholders about the exams that are supposed to begin later this month and assuring the members of the public and the stakeholders, just like last year the exams happened, they will happen this time. And at the end of the day, it's about the credibility of those exams and securing our schools and our brothers and sisters in school, even as we plan for the election, even during this uncertain time because of the political environment. Fred Matiang'i did not speak to security matters. He was there as the education CS, but we have a report on the ground. That's Dan Mule. As soon as he's able to get Matiang'i on the mic, we will be definitely going back to Kenya School of Government. But let me take you now to Kisumu, where there is demonstrations going on currently. The police have been very, very active in Kisumu, and we have seen running battles. Okukusa is with the camera there running, following the demonstrations, and the police as they disperse the crowd. This is just one of the active areas where they heed to have demonstrations every Monday and Friday until the voice of concern from NASA is heard by the IBC first in terms of removing those officials who they accuse of bungling the election, and secondly about the electoral laws that are currently at the floor of the House, which is supposed to be amended to reflect totally different kind of laws or rules of engagement going into the election, repeat election on the 26th of this month. So we'll be trying to get Uko Kusa, but on your screen are pictures from the county of Kisumu, where currently there is a lot of people just exercising their civil duty by expressing themselves in the manner they can and heeding to the call by NASA for them. Let's listen in.
Chiluba think he will last. We are counting days for him. As you can see, there cannot be election with this kind of background. Do you see what is happening? We are coming for you, Chiluba. You must go. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Hakuna vile tutapigwa live.
Hakuna vile tutapigwa live bwana.
The voices of residents from Kisumu who are demonstrating against the IBC, saying the IBC CEO, Ezra Chiloba, will definitely have to go. And of course, we'll be speaking to Oko Kusa. In studio already, I have George Musamali, who is a security analyst. We'll be speaking to him shortly regarding what's happening in Kisumu. And of course, as soon as we have reports from other parts of the country where there are demonstrations, we'll definitely be going live there. And we have several other areas we're following, including the Anniversary Towers, where Kennedy Mureithi is reporting from. We'll try and speak to Kennedy Mureithi on the situation along University Way and, of course, Anniversary Towers. Let's now take you to some of the stories that we have for you. And State House has defended the police brutality that took place at the University of Nairobi last week. State House spokesperson Manoa Esupisu wants university students to stop allowing their hostels to be used by lawbreakers as hideouts. While the police are under investigations by IPOA for the incident, it has drawn wide criticism from the civil society and other leaders in the country. Andrew Cheng reports.
The police who had entered the University of Nairobi hostels lined up the students and beat them up. Those who were not beaten were forced to endure inhuman treatment, all in the hands of a service meant to protect them. Explanations of the brutality have started coming in from the government. Today, from the president's spokesman, he claims that the students are partly to blame for what happened to them.
No one wants to see any violence brought to anyone, leave alone in a university campus. But the students also have to ensure that rogues that are robbing people along the streets and highways don't end up in university hostels. University hostels must not be the refuge for thugs roaming the streets in the name of demonstrations.
The police brutality has drawn condemnation from the civil society and the Central Organization of Trade Unions. Haki Africa, a Mombasa-based human rights NGO, is demanding investigation from IPOA.
We are ready to take the institutions involved to court to account for what happened. So as Haki Africa, we are not just going to sit down and observe institutions, constitutional institutions, breaking the law.
The lenses on the police are often more magnified when there are protests in any part of the country. Almost always these protests end in tear gas and beatings, despite the fact that demonstrations are a constitutional right of every Kenyan. Police using excessive force in quelling protests was also witnessed during the NASA demonstrations at the anniversary towers on Tuesday. And after the announcement of the presidential election results in August, where among those who lost their lives were 2 children in Mathare and Kisumu. The incident at the University of Nairobi is only the latest.
I'm appealing to the president and the government at large to come out clean and clear and tell the nation who ordered the GSU officers to enter into the university and club children, some who are innocent, some who didn't participate in those demonstrations. And even if they demonstrated, that is their constitutional right.
The vigor of forcefully quelling protests has not been seen in resolving most of the high-profile murders and disappearances in the country. The killers of Chris Msando, for instance, have never been brought to book. Many analysts fear that the scenario is a déjà vu, reminiscent of a bygone era.
We must respect the constitution of this country. And if there is any daydreamer who is thinking that this will be a dictatorship state, he will be in for a rude shock.
And with the more protests expected from tomorrow and more political activity coming as the country prepares for the fresh presidential elections, the beatings and the tear gas are likely to continue. Andrew Ochieng, NTV.
All right, that is the story that we first ran here yesterday by Andrew Cheng. Today, Andrew Cheng is reporting from the IBC, where they're supposed to be meeting the ambassadors. We'll link up with Andrew to speak to him later. We'll probably also try and get his opinion or what he says about the report yesterday on police brutality, having done the research and having the text behind the pictures in that story. We'll be speaking to Andrew. But I'm now joined in studio by 2 experts. That is Francis Maina. He's a security analyst, and George Musamali, who's also a security analyst, to talk about what's happening. And gentlemen, thank you very much for speaking, George and George first, Francis and George. And I will be playing a little bit of the interview my colleague Linus Kekai yesterday had with the IG Joseph Boynet regarding the police brutality. But I know you guys watched, and stemming from that question, not a lot, if you see the reaction from Kenyans, not a lot came out of that interview. Everyone has their own opinion about it, but one thing that is agreeable across the board is that it was not, he was not forthcoming, especially in terms of investigations and the level. And one of the questions that I want to ask, an express question that was asked to him, George, I'll begin with you, is yesterday he discounted the notion that those were university students being brutalized by the police, so to say. If you just arrived into the country and looked at that picture and looked at the video, that story plays, he dismissed it as a 3-second clip. What would come to your mind if you that picture just hit you first time? Would you look at people who are terrorizing the police and the residents, or will you look at people who made a deliberate decision to go into an institution of running and a hall of residents to brutalize students?
Can I believe those were not 3 seconds? And if they were 3 seconds, they were telling a story. And this is not the first time that we've had very senior police officers going to the media and denying what has already been shot. Because I remember during 2007, somebody said this is a video that had been shot at River Road. Yesterday, the Inspector General of Police discounted this and said, no, these were not students. These were people that were criminals. But if you look very clearly, this was a hall of residence. And we have talked to some of these students that were brutalized, and they said, yeah, actually some of us are even sitting for exams. And the police stormed in. And it has always been a rule that when you are dealing with a rioters mob, the moment they have dispersed, then that marks the end of your operation. Personally, I think I was involved in one riot at the University of Nairobi, and the instructions we were given were very clear. That time, I think we were under the command of the current commandant of Kapu, Mr. Philip Ndolo. He was in charge, and he told us, the moment these students get back into campus, we stop it at that point. So I don't believe what we saw was actually justified at all, and police used excessive force on defenseless students.
Okay. This is something that has been going on for a while before I speak to Maina. It's not only the student that we saw them looking for them beyond the protest. Look at what happened, for example, in Kisumu, where a baby lost their lives. The police were looking for these demonstrators to their houses, you know. So it's not only dispersing them, now the trend is also flashing them out from their hideouts.
I think that is wrong. That is not how to deal with a demonstration. If you are breaking a rioters mob, then you don't need to follow people into their houses. It's a rule, it's in the books, that the moment these people leave the streets, what you need to ensure is that they don't get back into the streets. Once they have gotten into their houses, you don't need to follow them into their houses and actually pull them out of their houses and clobber them. I think that was wrong, and as Ipoa said, investigations are supposed to be done, and whoever is found to have breached the law, he should face the full force of the law.
I'd like to talk to you. I'd like to ask you what kind of investigations. Before I ask you what kind of investigations are supposed to be done here, let me speak to Mr. Maina. Maina, looking at those pictures, what goes through your mind?
Looking at those pictures, what goes through my mind is that, one, we have a very, very unruly society. Because if you see students, it's none of their business to come out and throw stones. Once I was a victim on University Way. There was a riot, and me, I didn't know. They were throwing stones from the road, from the college to the road, and the vehicle wine was matched. You ask yourself, what have you done? You see, they are there at the taxpayers' money to go and study. They are not entitled to bring riot to us. They have the right of freedom of demonstration, but they don't have the right to riot and cause damages to other innocent Kenyans. So you see, what goes around is, where did we go wrong? University has been a beehive of student unrest, destroying taxpayers' equipments, being used by criminals. You know, also criminals join in Nairobi. You know, when there is a demonstration, pickpocket, muggers, everybody joining in, the university students. They go mugging everybody. What do you want the police to do? To look at it, face it, and just tell the people, go back to your colleges, and what have you. It is important that this country, people should reason on issues concerning the state, the issues concerning security. I don't support anybody being clobbered by police, because it's wrong. It is wrong. Whoever did it, it should face the rule of law. But also the students. If you go to the first world, even when Trump was inaugurated and there was demonstration, once you're stopped by a police, you lie down on your stomach, you are handcuffed, and you're taken to a police station. Then you cannot throw stones. You see, this issue of violence must come to a halt. People must stop it, because as much as the police have done wrong, even in the West, they don't give a room for looters and destroyers to come and destroy. Because you see, there is a certain creep even in the West, even a group of people who are like minorities or they are idlers. They would like to get in, venture in supermarkets, steal shops. You see, the police main job is to control the property rights and the life of other people. So it is important for our students, if they have an issue of the IEBC, they can send a delegation to the IEBC office. We don't need demonstrators, because very soon there will be no taxes paid by anybody, and this country will go to a halt. If you don't get paid adverts by people who advertise for you, you will not be giving news. So it is important for everybody to be honest with each other, even if we have a problem. How do we solve it? But we don't solve it in the street on destruction, because now there is animosity. Nobody is opening shops. like in Kisumu. Do you expect these business people of Kisumu to pay these people they employ at the end of the day? No. You see, we have to come out as Kenyans and reason. Democracy is not violence. Okay. And violence does not bring peace. Peace is brought by people who sit down, discuss about issues, and negotiate. But what does the university student come in on the IBC? Okay. Nothing. What they want to bring in is another force of destruction, more than the one we had from the demonstrators. It is my appeal that whoever was beaten, write an OB, get to IPOA, get him, identify the police officers. I agree they should be prosecuted. Okay. But also, my brother, it is important for them to understand they are the taxpayers' money to be in college. If they want to riot.
So your issue, Maina, is about students not being involved in demonstration. Your issue is not about having demonstrations in this country. You don't want to see students on the street.
They are there to go to class, my brother. You know, you see the point is, some of them come from very poor background. And the taxes, my brother, you pay, takes that young man to school. When he breaks a laboratory equipment in that class, you go pay again. So you see, it is important for them to be ready.
Do you know there are Model 2 students in school now?
There is the wealthy class and the poorest.
But do you know there are Model 2 who don't use any taxpayers' money to go to class?
They pay.
No, they pay for themselves.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
So your point that we should not have them on the street because they are utilizing taxpayers' money is probably neither here nor there. But I'd like to talk about that. Plus, I want to talk about why then, if we had to follow what you're saying, why then did we deliberately as Kenyans entrench freedom of expression to the extent of going to hold picketing and holding demonstrations entrenched in the Constitution? I'd like to talk about that. I also want to talk about one other thing that the AG said. Plus, we are going to show you a video, and I'd like the security experts also to comment about that video. But first, we'll take a break right here. When we come back, we still have a lot. Francis Maina and George are still staying with me. We'll be discussing that. Plus, we'll also tell you what's happening in Kisumu, and we'll also try to link up with Kennedy Mureithi at the IBC headquarters to tell us what's happening there. So stay with us. right, welcome back. My guests here are having a go at 8, talking about the value of demonstrations in this country. And of course, Kisumu is literally on gas. It's tear gas all over as police there try to break the riots. We'll be going to Kisumu shortly, but first we promised to go to University Towers. That's where we find Kennedy Muredi. And Ken, last week there was quite some demonstrations there that led to some tear gas, but today we haven't seen it. But that doesn't mean that there's nothing happening there. So being the man on the ground, tell us what's happening at University Towers and the University Way.
Well, thank you very much, Ken. Today is a complete departure from what we saw last week. What we are seeing here right now is that there is normalcy at this particular moment as police continue to guard the Anniversary Towers, anticipating anything that may come their way in the form of protesters walking all the way here. But what we've been able to see is that a few minutes ago, there were some people or members from the Nairobi Business Club, as they call themselves, who walked past the police at this particular point. Then there were also some few ODM and NASA supporters who passed by this particular point, but the police were totally on guard. A few minutes later, we also saw the police try to move away or to cross the road from this side where they are at the Anniversary Towers and walked to this other side where there is Nairobi University, whereby they were trying to cordon off any movement from students who are trying to come from that area. So police are literally on guard at this particular point, even with traffic police on this other end where there is the Nairobi University roundabout, making sure that there is traffic flow. Nothing stops at any one particular time. So they're just readying themselves for any eventuality at this particular point. But what we can confirm to you, Ken, is that police are actually on guard, and they want to make sure that nothing of the sort is trying to happen. But we're also getting reports that at the Uhuru Park, there is also heavy police presence trying to cordon off that area, because we do know that some of the protesters will be using the Uhuru Park as they try to come into town. So we are getting information that police have blocked all the entrances to town just to make sure that protesters do not get that opportunity to come into town. You'll remember that yesterday in a press conference by the Nairobi business community, they actually said that they will also be out in the streets just to make sure that these supporters from NASA do not, they are preparing themselves for a clash. And you do know that if the NASA supporters clash with the Jubilee supporters, it is going to be a different story. So that is what we do get from police, that they want to make sure that they desist or they block such an attempt, because it might actually be a full-blown war. On the other hand, the Nairobi business community say that the protests that have now been called for Friday and Mondays might cause businesses a huge losses, and that is what they want to make sure that they stop at this particular time. That is why we do understand that at most of the entrances to town that the protesters might be able to use, they are being blocked by the police just to make sure that there is nothing that might come into town and cause the much disturbance. You'll remember that last week police actually, even though it has been denied, were able to contain students from Nairobi University who are actually protesting against Babu Owino. And also, we are also getting information, though not confirmed, is that the Nairobi University students may also be joining in the demonstrations probably on Wednesday. But these are unconfirmed reports that we are getting. But that is the situation as of now. The roads are clear. Police are manning Anniversary Towers. The vehicles that are passing through here are passing just normally, and we do get that it's only 1 or 2, 3, not more than 7 protesters who are coming here just to gauge the situation as it is right now. There is also a heavy presence from the media, both international and local, who just want to capture what is going on at this particular time. You'll remember that NASA said that they will be engaging in these demonstrations until some of the people whom it has named, including the CEO, Ezra Chiloba, leaves office because they do understand, or they do say and insist that he played an integral role in making sure that the elections on August 8 were bungled. Some of the others who were mentioned by NASA, including Praxidis Tororei, has actually gone on leave, has actually left upon attainment of her retirement age. Also, we do have Muhati, who was sent on compulsory leave, and these are some of the changes. And since the NASA, that is the National Super Alliance, brought up these issues, there have been changes that have been effected at the IEBC, just to give them confidence ahead of the October 26th elections. And whether NASA will climb down on some of the demands that they've made to the IEBC following the changes that have been made is something to wait upon, because also Jubilee, on the other hand, have started a campaign to change some of the laws from Parliament, where they have a serious majority, and they do want to make sure that they change the laws to conform to what they say were directions from the Supreme Court with regards to the upcoming elections, so that the election is not bungled at any one particular time. You'll remember that the Chief Justice, in his ruling in upholding the decision to make sure that we have a repeat elections, they said that if there were anomalies that will arise from the repeat elections, they will not hesitate, but also cancel those elections. So these are some of the complexities that we are faced with in the country. And that's what he says that they want to change, while NASA says that they have irreducible minimums that have to be met before they do go for a repeat elections. Both sides are sitting pretty, making sure that they do have demands, but whether we are going to have elections on the 26th of October is also another subject that Kenyans will be waiting to see. So probably that is the stalemate we are in as a country at this particular time, Ken. And we do know that probably if they do sit down, as some of the religious organizations have called, probably a solution may be gotten. You'll remember that last week there was a sitting at the Bomas where my colleague Andrew Cheng is, but that meeting did not go on, owing to the fact that there was no amicable solution that was gotten between the two sides, as the NASA supporters, as the NASA delegation walked out. What you're seeing on your camera, on your screens right now, is police manning the anniversary towers, which houses the IEBC, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. And at this particular time, they are busy trying to arrange for, or to plan for, these elections that have been called for the 26th of October. But with this uncertainty that we also do get at this particular time, we do not know what the direction will be. You'll remember also there's a presidential candidate who was there in the August 8 elections, that is Ekuru Okot, who moved to the High Court to get an interpretation of the Constitution, whereby it says that to get an interpretation on who should be participating in the repeat polls. You remember that the Supreme Court in 2013 said not only the person who garnered the most votes and the person who garnered the second most votes will be participating, but Ekuru Court says that he wants an interpretation on whether he should be included in that vote. These are complexities that are actually found in Articles 138 and 140 of the Constitution, and he wants to get an interpretation on whether he can be included in this. But also in the new laws that have been proposed by Jubilee and are now at the public participation stage, is that there is a provision whereby somebody says that if any person withdraws from that election and one person actually remains, then they will be declared winner. And this is what Jubilee actually wants to be effected before the next elections. Whether it is going to pass through, and actually if it is going to be challenged in court, it is something to wait upon. But as of now, it is a proposal on the table that may be adopted if it goes through public participation and it is taken through the House procedure and passes at that particular time. So those are some of the proposals that are there, and if they do pass, probably they might be used in the repeat polls. But as of now, if my cameraman can show, is that the streets here near the IEBC are actually clear. Cars are passing at will, there is no major traffic because of the traffic police who are here. Also, the rapid deployment unit from the administration police is here, and they're making sure that nobody is able to access town at this particular time, just to make sure that things are running smoothly. There are scores of people who are passing through here. We do not know whether it is routine or these are people who are coming to judge the situation before the demonstration go on later in the day. But we do not know. You'll remember last week when Raila was speaking to the media, he said that it is not a must for the generals to be there for demonstrations to go on. You've seen what is happening in Kisumu, and probably they might be joining the demonstrations probably later in the day if they are going to happen, or they will not be joining because they say that generals do not have to participate in the demonstrations. Kenyans themselves have a duty as to why they want to participate in these elections. Last week on Monday and on Friday when they had demonstrations here, there were calls that Chiloba must go, and they do insist that Chiloba played a serious role in the bungling of the August 8th elections. But as of now, what we can just know is that we can only wait and see whether these demonstrations will be taking place as they had been called or they have been aborted. What we said, probably will be going to the Uhuru Park, whereby we do understand that there is serious and heavy police presence at that particular point, just trying to make sure that there is nobody who passes there in their effort of getting into town, where they will be coming to the IEBC, that is specifically the anniversary towers, to camp outside here and disrupt traffic at this particular point. Also on the other side, that is on Tomboya, we do understand that there is also heavy police presence, just to make sure that the people who are calling themselves the Nairobi business community do not come into town, so that they meet here at this particular point and probably clash. But as of now, it is back to you, Ken, in studio.
All right, Ken, speaking to Ken in studio. Thank you very much, Ken Mijungu. I'll wait for him to get to Uhuru Park, where we will be speaking to him shortly. And in studio, we have Francis Maina and George Msamali, who are speaking to us about what's happening in the country. And suffice to note that demonstrations in Kisumu have been fairly violent, with police trying to break out the protests, and we've seen running battles. We're still trying to get Ouko to settle to speak to us and tell us what's happening in Kisumu exactly. Here in Nairobi, as Ken Mijungu reports, the demonstrations are just getting underway, but the police are making sure you don't get to town. If you don't have to get to town, or if you have to keep to safety, do not engage where they are. But the demonstrations Monday and Friday as called by NASA. Let's speak about the substance of yesterday's debate. Interview between Linus Kekai and the IG, Joseph Boynet. Before I put a question to the gentleman, let's watch this clip.
Inspector General of Police, Joseph Boynet, do you have any regrets?
I think it is important to understand all of these things in context. Why did we get there? The first instance. So we should not be judged on the basis of a 3-second clip.
The context you're talking about, let's have the context right here, and we're going to see those clips, particularly from the University of Nairobi. Let's just watch this. These are the pictures, Inspector General Boynet. What is the context?
The context is there was a very serious crime committed along State House Road on the lower part in the neighborhood of Mamlaka and the halls of residence of the university. And there was also serious blockage of traffic along Uhuru Highway and Wayaki Way. And we were, as required by the law, expected to move very, very fast and restore normalcy. Now, number two, if you allow me,
let's go by stage by stage. You say roads were blocked.
Yes.
But what we are seeing here, the pictures you're watching, are policemen beating students in halls of residence.
Listen to me so that I can explain how we got there. I said the roads were blocked, motors were being stoned, and I have pictures also that I can avail if you wish, of a border person hit with a big stone on the head, almost killed. And we also got information that there were rogues who were masquerading as university students who had gotten into the halls of residence. Now, how we got into the halls of residence and sadly into some classrooms was upon the invitation of the university itself, by the security department, as well as by higher up in the university, that we have a serious situation in part of the campus, and you need to help us sort it out.
All right, we'll try and get more from Boynet, but let me put this question to the gentleman here, and I'll begin with George. George, what we had yesterday in that debate is sort of a justification about what happened. Is there a justification, especially if you look at how the students were brutalized? Can you find any justification anywhere?
Ken, I don't find any justification anywhere because there's a code of conduct for the police when they're carrying out these kind of operations. There are ways that you are supposed to carry out these operations. Boynet is saying that they were invited by the university security. What situation is he talking about? He's not telling us exactly what serious crime had been committed inside the university for the university security to find it necessary to call in the police. And when the police got inside there, I've seen people being made to do frog jumps. I've seen people being clobbered. I've seen tear gas being thrown into the halls of residence. I mean, Ken, this is not how police are supposed to operate. Remember, this is a service to the people. And if there was any person who had committed crime inside the halls of residence, then apparently there are better ways of getting the students out, identifying them, and isolating those who are supposed to be bona fide students and the people that are masquerading to be students. Okay. I think there's a way of doing this in a very civil manner, because the students know each other. The university security can easily identify a student from, and they carry student IDs. So I think what we saw probably was a breakdown in command, some kind of an operation that did not have proper command structures. And when the police went there, they didn't know exactly how they're going to carry out this operation. Okay. And this is why you find that they were getting into the halls, bringing out students, lining them up. I mean, we have a civil way of doing police work.
All right, we understand that the acting CS for Interior is about to speak, and we promise as soon as he speaks, because it's very important what he says, especially ahead of the election in terms of security and what's going on around the world. Actually, I'm told that Matiang'i is ready. Let's just break it from this conversation to him and listen in.
Yes. The lighting was not amazing.
Right, as they get ready, CS Education, acting CS Interior, Fred Matiang'i, they're getting ready, getting him a podium where he can speak. We'll just be going back to him shortly. But earlier we had him talking about education and exam preparedness, telling the stakeholders and parents at large in the whole country that indeed there shall be exams and the students shall be secure and the environment shall also be secured. So Fred Matiang'i right there speaking. I think he has begun to speak. I can see his lips moving. Let's listen in.
This business. Okay. Okay, Sawa. You know, I said everything I had to say when we were in there. I honestly don't think there's anything left to be said, except that, you know, as you can see, if you have been following, we have a very programmed way of preparing for the national exams these days. We make sure that every T is crossed and every I is dotted. We start first of all with internal meetings. We bring together stakeholders. Like you saw, we had at KICD about 2 weeks ago, when we bring the Kenya Secondary Schools Heads Association, then we bring the Kenya Primary Schools Heads Association, the unions, the education sector players. Then once we have harmonized and agreed internally what we need to do, we move the next level now to the administrators and the executors, who are the sub-count directors of education and the deputy count commissioners. Now we discuss security, logistics, and how we will stage the exam. So this is what I may call like the last national prep meeting. Now the action moves to the regions and the counties, where the county teams now begin to ready themselves. By this time, the Kenya National Examinations Council, and you may have heard from Chairman Professor Magoha, has moved around the country, checked the containers and so on. We have checked the papers, we are ready. This is an important exercise. 1.6 million of our children are sitting for exams. And you know what that means to them. Many of them is transition from primary to secondary. The others is transition from secondary to tertiary education. So it's that important. And that's why we pay great attention to it. And you know, from last year, we have built a tripartite collaboration between the Ministry of ICT, the Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government, and the Ministry of Education. And so we put together an army of officers through this interdepartmental collaboration. Then we drive the exams forward. I want to say this to parents, to my fellow teachers, to all of us, and especially to our children. We are ready now to conduct exams. And I wish all our children the best as they begin this process. We will have credible exams this year as we did last year. And we are working on many other things in relation to the exams. You know, we are preparing for Form 1 selection. Even as we are doing this, we are also preparing for Form 1 selection because in 2018, as the President has indicated and directed, we are going to commence free-day secondary education. We are also now working on that data and how we are going to increase capitation and how we will avail the resources to the principals in schools in good time. We are working with the TSC on how we will recruit a few more teachers so that we are able to deal with the teacher-student ratio at secondary school level, because the numbers will become different once secondary education is free from January next year. So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of policy work. And then let me tell you, it's not stuff that I can discuss within a press conference like this. And it's work that has gone on for a very long time. You know, the Jubilee administration began this about 3 years ago. And we've been working on it consistently, you know, as it were. And at the same time, you know, preparing ourselves for the rollout of the new curriculum if we're in time for Parliament to approve the new curriculum, for Cabinet and Parliament to approve it. You realize that, you know, so many things have shifted because of the presidential election on the 26th. Then by the time we get round, but we have time. I think we have time to be able to roll that out. So it's a lot of stuff. It's not things I can discuss at a press conference like this. But we met here today to be sure that we are ready. You saw that this are here and everyone. Now we are ready to bring the exams. Bas, hiyo imetosha nafikiri.
Have some few challenges you want to conquer this time around. What you did last year in the exam examinations. What would you say this year would be your objective as a challenge to conquer after all is said and done in these exams? Again, could you tell us something about 100% transition from class 8 to Form 1 next year, given the free secondary education? And finally, my last question. Finally, the revision environment and politics around at this time.
Well, let me start with your third question. Our children are not revising with politicians, so I don't understand why we should be interested in the revision environment. Our children are not revising with politicians, so the politics is irrelevant to what we are doing. Let's leave that aside, and I don't want to address myself to that. The question of, and I'm hearing this for the first time, that when people meet, they meet because there's a challenge to conquer. No, we meet to organize ourselves. That's how institutions work. You meet to go over your plan together so that everyone is reading from the same script. That's what we are doing. We're not meeting because there's any challenge to conquer. There isn't any challenge. We began this tripartite collaboration last year, and we worked at it, you know, so many times. It has worked. We met again in that same vein. If you follow our calendar of activities, we have actually followed everything as we planned, that we would have an internal meeting, then we have a national meeting, then we now go to the counties and do the local prep meetings and move along. I don't foresee any particular challenge in my honest view, and we are all prepared the way we are prepared with everything, including fallback positions like transport. We already have aircraft, you know, standby, so that in case, you know, weather challenges are there and we need to you know, lift exams from one point to another point. These are the ordinary preparations you make when you have an important national exercise like the one we have. So we are fine. I don't foresee any challenges. I prefer, if you don't mind, we have been contemplating, and I requested our media teams, Dr. Sringi, Karo, Buhere, to organize a meeting at which we can take you through both the cabinet decision last week and the blueprint for free-day secondary education, because I think it's we need to take you through that in some level of detail, because if it's not something we can talk about casually. We need to show you the figures, we need to show you the investment, where we are increasing classrooms and what does that mean for the numbers of teachers and how we are addressing that and so on. So I'll address that, but suffice it to say that we are ready to implement free-day secondary education. I know the questions that have been asked about teachers. Yes, Cabinet voted a sum of money, which includes some money for us to hire a few more secondary school teachers. And then, we have been spending money to expand infrastructure across the country, have more classrooms, more laboratories, more dormitories where we need to build some, so that we can accommodate our children. We have about 1 million of our kids doing KCP this year. And the intention of the government is to have the whole lot of them in Form 1 in January 2018. Asante sana.
I think, first we thank for the effort that we're doing. But normally, when this practical or when exam is kicking off, we have seen several challenges. In several areas, we have seen the gap exam when we are this exam. So we want to assure Kenyans what measures I have you talking about. When this exercise kick off, we have seen some areas there's a dent here and there. What measures are you putting in place to make sure that there's no that will be put in place? Second, we have seen there's a video that is circulating in the social media, and there's alleged that there was a brutal university student. What measures are you taking against those consequences?
Well, my friend, we were in another circumstance. I would have just called for some prayers for you. We actually had an exam in 2016, a national exam of the same magnitude as we are staging this year. I don't understand the hitches you are talking about. These suppositions and statements, we just sweeping statements we make. Oh, we have seen when exercises start, there is a challenge. Which one? Because you see, the reason why we plan, planning for a national exam begins at the beginning of the year. We did start yesterday. We begin in March. And we've done all that work, mapping the country. I mean, sometimes we set up several scenarios and ask ourselves the question, what could go wrong? A paper not reaching this school, a question not being understood. And we've gone all over, that. I want to assure you again, do not be a doubting Thomas. We are fine. We are ready and prepared to conduct national examinations, period. Nothing will go wrong, believe you me. Nothing will go wrong from our point of view. And if anything ever goes wrong, it's something that we are not able to foresee at this particular time, and by the grace of God, we'll be able to deal with it. I do not foresee any problem at all. On the video, I'm actually having a meeting this afternoon with the police chief, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Nairobi, and I requested the Vice Chancellor to also bring along comprehensive comments after that, because the Inspector General sent to us a report actually transpired at the University of Nairobi. And I would like, as I said yesterday, when I was met by your colleagues at a public function in Nyamira, I said, I like addressing things in a specific manner. I don't want to make generalized statements. I would like to make very specific comments on that issue. And let me not put the cart before the horse. Let me receive the report from the Inspector General, and I will sit down. We have called a meeting that involves everyone, the police chiefs. Our PS was actually reaching out to the National Police Service and IPOA and the Vice Chancellor of the University of Nairobi and the student leaders round the table, so that then when we are presented with the report, we can make comments about it. What I need to say, however, because my colleagues here, the PS Education, for example, here is aware of it. Last night, the PS and I, for about 2 hours, were awake because someone was circulating a video on social media of a brutal beating of students by a teacher in a class. And everybody was, raving. This is happening in Kenya. You must act. CS Matiang'i, where are you? And so on. This is happening in Chisia, which is in Western Kenya. Did you know that Chisia is a school in Zimbabwe? And this particular incident had happened in Zimbabwe, it was already a matter that my colleague, the Minister for Education in Zimbabwe, was already dealing with. And some Kenyan guys were circulating it in social media and hassling me and PS Kipsang. You know, where are we when this is happening? How come we have not taken action? And so on and so forth. All of you good people are Kenyans. My brothers and sisters, we have choices to make as a people and as a country on how we want to live. As for me, and from the point of view of government, honestly, I am just sick and tired of how we are abusing social media, the propaganda and lies we tell in social media. I have raised doubts myself about some of the footage in that purported video from the University of Nairobi. I've raised very credible doubts, but I don't want to comment about those doubts until I get the report from the Inspector General of Police. So it's all of us, especially you, my brothers and sisters in the media, to exercise a measure of responsibility. We were awake for 2 hours. Kipsang is here. Because there is an incident, we were waking up everybody. Kipsang was looking for, because first of all, we were told it's a school in Migori. And the PS was talking to the county director of education in Migori. I was talking to the regional county, regional education coordinator in Western Kenya, Mrs. Olik. At night, for 2 hours, we were awake. First of all, finding out what school that is and where it is. Because I was prepared to go there physically myself this morning, looking at what was happening, you know, in social media. It was raging. Chisia is a school in Zimbabwe. And when we began looking at that, with the help of our colleagues at the Ministry of ICT, we dug up all the comments, the press statements, the press interaction with my colleague Minister for Education in Zimbabwe, and so on and so forth. And that time, we had been kept awake for over 2 hours because of those kinds of things. So let's be responsible people in the things we do. Thank you.
All right, the CS for education there, Fred Matiang'i, addressing issues of education, completely keeping off the issues of security, waiting for a later time to talk about them, but the pertinent issues, same as the ones on education. But look here, we are monitoring a lot happening in the national scene right now. We'd like to show you a split screen of what's happening around you from the anniversary towers to Kisumu to Mombasa. We'll have them shortly on your screen because that's what's happening. I'm still here with my panel. I'd like to ask them the final question, and then we'll definitely be talking to Peter Mwangangi in Mombasa. But as we wait for that split screen just to show you what's happening around you, let's conclude this interview. And I'd like to begin with you now, Francis. On the value of what has been happening in the country, in your opinion, what should be happening?
No. What has happened in this country is very, very terrible because from the court decision, the highest court in this country, read a very clear judgment nullifying the elections and should be repeated within 60 days. And at the end of the judgment, after Joki Dongo read her judgment, the Chief Justice read 2 paragraphs exonerating anybody from the IBC and everybody.
That's not true. We have had that debate. We've had that debate
let me explain. You asked me a question.
Yes, but
let me explain myself.
I'm not going to agree.
Ken, I'm saying what we understood.
Did not exonerate anyone. We have had that discussion. But I cannot let it pass minor. And it's false. We've had that discussion here with a panel of lawyers for 2 occasions, and we found out that the Supreme Court never delved into the criminality or otherwise of these officials. That's why they did not delve into who was guilty or otherwise. That's the work of other courts. The Supreme Court was a constitutional petition which was supposed to look at how the election was conducted. So that line of argument will not suffice.
Did he say that nobody will be held liable?
He did not say that.
He said that
he did not say that.
The IEBC, nobody was held capable of
he
having
did not say
one.
That
But did he say who was held liable?
The CJ said that no evidence was tabled before us that could impute any criminality on anyone, on any official of the IBC. No one was exonerated. They just said you did not present evidence that we as a Supreme Court could impute criminality on anyone's part. So that line of argument will not suffice. Let's go to security.
Let me go to the second issue.
Yes.
Because once the elections were said to be done in 60 days,
yes,
then the other extra judgments, people are reading from their own script that this one should be done. Also, the other people never had them in the Supreme Court. So what Kenyans are expecting is the elections to be done in 60 days by the IEBC without fear or favor, without any extra push and pull, without pushing anybody that you have to do this and this. You know, you cannot referee your own game. You cannot be a master of your own wedding. You cannot be an MC in your own wedding. So it is important for us to sit down as a country and expect IEBC to do the elections. They do it wrong, they go back again to the court. They do it right, the Kenyans accept them. But it has become like a push and pull. You want them done on your conditions, you want them done on the other side on your conditions. It is important that we go back to the middle ground level and agree that we have an election on the 26th. Let IEBC do it. You know, it is nobody's business. If they bugger it, they'll be held responsible, whether criminal or whatever.
Go back to court.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
So I don't see, we try to babysit them and try to make them that, you know, we have to always hold them on our chest. If they don't want to do them right, it's up to them. But constitutionally, they have a right to do them exactly the way they were told by the Supreme Court. Then, on the other people who have troops in the ground outside roaming, it is important for our leadership, both sides of the aisle, to understand this country is ours for us all. Let us not behave like Jonathan Savimbi, who came here in 1975. Kenyatta told him, Agostino Neto is older than you by 12 years. He's an old man. Let him be the president. You be the vice president. Holden Roberto be the defense minister. When he went back to Rwanda, he went to the bush. 4 years down the line, Dr. Neto died in Moscow in September of cancer. Savimbi would have been the president immediately. He fought until 2002 when he was left with nobody. He was killed in the state of Mexico, going to Zambia. He was running away. You see, after wasting all his energy of years and years, let us look at our country beyond yourself. Let us look at the country. What have we living? This country was made by God. We had old people who never went to school. Our parents went to school as the first generation. We've gone to school. Our kids are doing masters and PhD. We went up to degree 1. You see, we're going to have generation that who will not understand where we have come from.
Okay.
But the best and the most, my conclusion is, let us hold our horses. Let's do the elections according to the Constitution and the IEBC. Let's do it the Supreme Court the way they said. If IEBC, Chebukati and Chiroba, they want to bugger the elections, committee is just open for them. They'll be jailed. It's a criminal offense. So let us not try to babysit them and tell them you want them, you don't want them. It is important for us also, even you as the people of the media, to understand that our country is held by everybody. Okay. Even in the media, if you try to push this country to a civil war, like Rwanda, everybody will be out in the wilderness. Okay. Syria today, and I think on security issues, Syria today, the areas which are liberated by Assad holds 85% of the population because they want to be under the government umbrella. Okay. The issue of the 15%, it is holding all these few criminals and ISIS and Daesh and al-Nusra. And you see, these people, the Syrians, even in Europe, they are saying, let our country have peace. We go back home because they are segregated in Europe. Everybody wants to be in the borders of Kenya. Yes. We being the smallest tribe, being the biggest tribe, okay, and also without fear or favor. Let us do the elections according to the Supreme Court judgment. Let us not write our own Supreme Court judgment. You know, the street Supreme Court judgment being said in public rallies that our elections were wrong and they were... Okay. You know, it's very painful when people read a different script from what we saw.
All right. Francis Maina, and of course on the split screen right now, we have Mombasa. There are some demonstrations in Mombasa. In Kisumu, it's still terrible. The news from there is that the demonstrations that were turning a little violent are still being that same way, and we have policemen running around with the demonstrators. That is the main street of Kisumu, Oginga Odinga Street. That's barricaded by stones. The cars are still there. Probably there's no destruction, but they are running battles in Kisumu. Yonder we can see some smoke, and we saw tires being burnt a little earlier. Peter Mwangangi will be reporting from Mombasa now that the demonstrations have also begun in Mombasa. In Nairobi, Kennedy Mureithi is at the anniversary, was making his way to the Uhuru Park. We'll be speaking to him. But let me give George an opportunity also to comment. George, looking at what's happening in the country in the face of these demonstrations, and obviously you see a lot of action in Kisumu, and we expect the police to act in a certain way if they're provoked. Is this what the people who called for these demonstrations anticipated?
I think, Ken, let me not look at the merits and demerits of not having the elections on 26th as demanded by the opposition. I think that is their right, constitutional right, because the Constitution, Article 37, allows for peaceful demonstrations. But what we are seeing happening on the screens is that these demonstrations cannot in any way be considered to be peaceful. We've seen a lot of intervention by the police. We've seen a lot of tear gas being used by the police. I don't know at what point these demonstrations turned into riots. I think this is something that we need to look into seriously. And for this country, as it is happening right now, I think we are stepping into dangerous waters and we need to change direction. Because if we're having people on the streets every other day demonstrating, and then we are not sitting down and saying, why are we having these demonstrations? I remember in 1990, people were picketing and they were saying Section 2A must go. And it took the intervention of the president himself to sit down with his cabinet and say, if this is what is causing problems, then let's go multi-party. I think we should buy from that book. Let the people who are concerned sit down and agree on a way forward. Because whether you're in the opposition or you're in government, these demonstrations are not something that we can say is selling out Kenya in a very big picture. And remember, these policemen are also human beings. At some point, fatigue will come in. For how long can we sustain police presence on the streets? We must look for another solution.
Okay. And that solution, because we know even demonstration is constitutional.
Yes.
Yes.
We must look for a solution.
We just talked about Article 37. We talks about assembly, demonstrations, picketing, and presenting petitions. You know.
Yes, it's allowed.
In your mind, as we conclude, in your mind, what is this alternative that we should look for?
The alternative is dialogue.
Okay.
Because if we don't have dialogue right now, you are going to see these demonstrations on the street every other day. I remember during Sabasaba, we started with Sabasaba in Kamukunji. The next day, we were being deployed to Mathare. It went like that for more than 4 days.
But how do you...
And even us, we're getting fatigued.
Fatigued,
saying,
yes, because you're also human, just like the demonstrators.
Like the demonstrators.
I said I will end, but I'd like to ask you, when you speak about dialogue, and one party is being invited to the table and they're walking out, because NASA walked out of the dialogue, how else would they be brought to the table?
I think there are reasons they're giving why they walked out of that dialogue. You know, I'm not a politician. I don't want to get so much into that.
No,
but I tend to think that the only solution that we have right now is not using brutal force on the demonstrators, but having our leaders sitting down and agreeing that Kenya is greater than us. And remember, one time Saitoti said, yeah, the country is bigger
than an individual. All right, thank you, George. And let's take you to what's happening, because that's where you want to see what's happening. And we begin with Kisumu. Mombasa is fairly peaceful. We can see even ladies in their buibui and young men and women on the streets, but it's fairly peaceful in Mombasa. In Kisumu, we can't say the same. That is the main street of Kisumu, Oginga Odinga, and there is that kind of demonstration. And if you look at besides the roads, there are people with parked cars. It means they were ready for the day, and this demonstration is catching them off guard, probably. Look at the number of stones that are on the road and the security personnel. Let's take you to Kisumu and listen in. All right, live pictures from Kisumu, the county of Kisumu. Professor Peter Mijungu is the governor of Kisumu County. The shop fronts along Ogingodinga, the busiest street and the main street of Kisumu, is closed. No business going on, probably for the better part of the day, and this will be repeated on Friday as the residents there take to the streets to protest the continuous stay of the IBC officials who were almost indicted for what happened during the election. A lot of tear gas in Kisumu. Our journalists are on standby, will be reporting live, telling us what's happening exactly. But it looks as though there is no activity in Kisumu. Earlier on, we saw the police and the demonstrators running around the road leading to the upmarket Milimani estate, and obviously other parts. We are yet even to find pictures. This is main town. We are yet to find pictures from Kondele and other parts of Kisumu. And of course, we'll be getting there. And on your split screen also is the picture from Mombasa, where there are also very peaceful demonstrations, just young men and women taking to the streets. We'll try and speak to Peter Mwangangi about what's happening in Mombasa, and definitely we'll be coming back to Nairobi to speak to Kennedy Mureithi about what else is happening in Nairobi, and especially Uhuru Park, where they are telling us there's a lot of police presence. But Francis Maina just made his way out, and I'm still here with George Msamali, a security analyst, talking about that. George, I'd like to play you a video. I don't know if Mark, my video is ready, because I'd like George to comment about that video. All right, let's play this video first.
Hapa hivi angalia. Hebu fungua mlango. Angalia. Si ataki makaratasi yako. Hebu fungua mlango. Wewe ni fresha. Hata stick hapa na fungua niwekee hapa. Nikuwekee dawa. Please. Fungua hiyo bana. Fungua. Dawa ndio hii. Fungua.
All right, what happened in that video is later that tear gas was thrown into that building to flush out those students. It's just, George, one of the videos that we have seen, and this points to police brutality. The most amazing thing about that video is that we had the faces of the police officers. We talked about investigations, and I said I'll ask you, what kind, in the face of such evidence, what kind of investigations goes on?
I mean, Ken, I'm disappointed, because I don't expect this from a senior officer, because I've looked at the rank of that officer, and is a rank of a superintendent. This is a person who is supposed to know better. This is a person who is supposed to be in control of the situation. But him going and doing what is not expected of him, then it shows us that we have a rogue police service, because I saw that student was even identifying himself. He said, I'm a student. He was showing some kind of documents confirming that he's actually a bona fide student. Why do you need to throw a tear gas canister into that room? And when it comes to using this kind of weaponry, we have rules. When are you supposed to use a tear gas, and how and where? You just don't do it. Yeah? So I tend to see a situation whereby policemen are just out there without any command. They have been deployed to deal with demonstrations, but they don't have rules of engagement. And this is a document that's supposed to be to be done, and then before you go out, you're supposed to be briefed on what you are supposed to go and do. Because I've given you an example. Yes. I've given you an example of 1995. We were deployed to Nairobi University, and the rules were, if these students get back into campus, then what you need to do is just cordon off the area.
So that they don't come out.
Make sure they don't come out again. Don't enter the campus. And we did exactly that. Nobody says that they were not throwing stones at us. They were doing it from inside the campus. But we had protective gear, and we made sure, yes, they stayed in, and that was the end of the matter. But this situation whereby now we are allowing policemen to get into halls of residence, lobbing tear gas canisters into rooms and ejecting the students from their rooms where they are not dangerous to anybody. They are not causing any destruction to property or anything. I think things are getting out of hand, and somebody should take responsibility for this. Because I'm saying, yes, there are rogue elements within the university student body, but there was a proper way of going in and isolating the students from those who are not students, and identifying those people that we say that are criminals within the student's body. I think that is what is supposed to have been done. But not going by what we've seen, lobbing tear gas canisters. I saw even a video whereby an officer isolated a young lady from the group, slapped her until there was an intervention from a fellow officer. This is when he said, go back. I saw that video. I think we should now hold police to account for what we are witnessing here.
And obviously the IG says his office is already doing the investigations, and IPOA have also said that doing investigations.
But we've never seen anything coming out of these investigations, Ken.
Okay.
Because that book that is used to train police officers on how to deal with riots is a public document. Anybody can access it, read and see how these people are trained on how to deal with rioters. Okay. And when do you use brutal force? And that brutal force, how do you come and now take responsibility for it? Because somebody must take responsibility for this. Okay. And this is why when you go out, you have commanders.
All right.
But here it's the commander that is breaking the law. So what do you expect of the rank and file?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, George, I'd like to speak more about what's happening. And as we take a short break once more here, those are live pictures from Kisumu and Mombasa. We'll try and get you a picture from Nairobi. Kennedy Mureithi is reporting right here in Nairobi. He's the one having the tear gas Monday. He's reporting for us from Anniversary Towers from around the city, where we anticipate any time that there will be protest in town, because that's what he's reporting on. We'll be getting to Kennedy Mureithi, but Kisumu is fairly violent. In Mombasa, it's fairly peaceful, and Mombasa, there are now leaders addressing the crowd. When we come back, we'll try and go to Mombasa and listen. First, we'll take a short break right here on NTV Today. Stay with us. right, welcome back to NTV Today. My name is Ken Mijungu, in studio with George Musamali, a security analyst. I'll be speaking to him shortly, but here is our split screen. Let's take a look at what's happening around you. And we have a live feed from Mombasa, we have a live feed from Kisumu, and we are now understanding that Kakamega also there are a series of demonstrations. We don't have a live kit in Kakamega, but share your videos on our social media platforms. We'd like to look at some of them. If you're in Kakamega and there are protests there, share those images with us. But let's take you to Mombasa, where the leadership of Mombasa County number 001 is currently also holding protests and leading protests in that county. And we understand they're now addressing the crowd. Let's cross over to Mombasa and listen in.
Haya, maisia wameongea, sio? Haya, sasa na mimi nataka kuchukua fursa kuweza kupatia ndugu yangu Badi Twani baweze kunguruma. Haya. Tukadunga usijani. Kwanza tuonyesheni mikono Mombasa, tumeamua mikono. Mombasa hoye! Mombasa hoye! Leo tuko hapa ili kuonyesha.
All right, we get you out of Mombasa, where the demonstrations are fairly peaceful. We are taking a situation check right here in Nairobi. The pictures on your left, is it left? Yes, on your right actually, are right here along Kenyatta Avenue, just behind the Nation, in front of the Nation Center. Currently there are demonstrations and tear gas is being lobbied around town. So even us right here at Nation Center, we're about to start feeling the tear gas because it's very close to us, if you can see the pictures. And we understand at Uhuru Park, there's a gathering that is already plotting on how to get to the IEBC headquarters. We understand even Mombasa, what they're trying to do is after that gathering, they're trying to make their way to the regional IEBC headquarters, regional IEBC offices in Mombasa. But the pictures on the right of your screen are right here in town, Nairobi, at Kenyatta Avenue, just a stone throw away from where we are in studio, where there are demonstrations. And the people are being dispersed. There are a few crowds that were forming around here, but now they have been dispersed with the lobbying of that tear gas. And obviously the police are not leaving anything to chance, making sure that no one stays within the CBD and demonstrates, obviously, because of business interests and the rest. We understand from Kennedy Mureithi that he's already at the Uhuru Park, where he will be speaking to us shortly. That clip is actually outside the governor's office, if I'm not wrong, and or maybe not, but we will try and link up with our reporters. And I have in studio George, who is speaking to us about all this demonstration. And George, The net effect of having demonstrations in the capital, and not only in the capital, in major cities of Mombasa, of Kisumu, now we understand Kakamega is also there. Someone told me Migori, there are also demonstrations, there are crowds that are forming. The net effect of this, I know you're not an economist, but you're a security expert, in terms of destabilizing the status quo, what does this do to them?
I think already we are seeing a situation whereby the economy is at a standstill. And remember, when there is insecurity, because people are looking at this from the security perspective, you've seen Kisumu, all businesses are closed down. Part of Nairobi, the businesses are closed down, and people did not get to town today. So we are looking at a situation whereby slowly and slowly we are killing the economy of this country.
Okay.
And that is why I said earlier, let's not have protests every other day. I think dialogue is the way to go in this situation. And as I said, we are using a lot of resources. Look at what the tear gases that are being used by the police every other day. Basically, this is not arguing well for this country, and our leaders need to wake up and think properly. Because this is Nairobi now, you see the streets, nobody's going to work again for the whole day today. We are even being told that we have another protest on Friday. Yes. Meaning then, again on Friday, people will not come to work. All the major cities right now are in turmoil. Is this the way we are supposed to go? I think the leadership of this country now needs to sit down and think critically. Find a solution to deal with these situations, because we are told these are supposed to be peaceful demonstrations. So far, I've not seen any unpeaceful demonstration within Nairobi, but already police are using tear gas.
And of course, if you see what's happening in Nairobi, and this is where, one, they have obviously said that there will be parallel demonstrations by the Nairobi business community, and of course they also have demonstration by the NASA team. And if you look at this, there is likely to be a clash here, right?
There's likely to be a clash. In fact, that is exactly what happened when we had these demonstrations last week, because we had a group that came in and said they are coming to protect their businesses. And this is the preserve of the police. The police are supposed to be there for the protesters, because it's a constitutional right, and any other person that was coming to disrupt this peaceful demonstration, then that one should have been the concern of the police. Okay. They should have arrested these people, taken them to court, trying to disrupt something that is legally being done. We did not see that happening. And right now, as we've said in Nairobi, we have people that will take advantage of the situation. Criminal gangs always come up when we have this situation, because we have created an environment for them, conducive for them, to carry out their criminal acts. And I think the police should have had a plan on how to deal with this situation. Okay. And that's why I said we need to learn from the past. Okay. Does the police command ever get any lessons from the previous protests that we've been having? Because I'm seeing the same tactics that were being used before to deal with protesters being applied by the police. We've not learned anything new. We've always felt like if breaking up a protest is using brutal force on the demonstrators, that is not the right policing methods in the 21st century. Okay. We're still using the old tactics. Imagine, I'm seeing what we used to do in 1990. Still using tear gas, we still using batons on people, but that did not work for us. Why do we think it will work this time round?
Okay. Yeah? But we see on the flip side, if you look at what's happening in Mombasa, actually, it's fairly peaceful.
It's fairly peaceful.
And I bet the policemen who are accompanying those demonstrators, why can that same thing happen right here in town?
Ken, police are supposed to provide security. The moment you've been notified by a group that they want to carry out a peaceful demonstration, then the right thing for you to do is to come up with a plan, an operational plan on how you're going to secure the protesters, from the point where they start their demonstration up to the end. This is what is supposed to be done. But here we're being told, before even the demonstrations start, that we will not allow people to break into other people's businesses, will not allow people to disrupt businesses. Who said that the purpose of this demonstration was to come and destroy property? We are trying to push these people to that end by coming up and saying that we know you will do this. Then automatically they'll come and say, already we've been told, we've been warned, and these people are not here to secure us, but they're here to do what? to disperse us.
Okay.
That is the notion of most demonstrators when they get onto the streets, and they are ready for that.
All right.
I mean, that is where we get it from.
And I agree with you. There's an audio clip that went viral last week when the residents of Kisumu were complaining that the police were very civil with them because they expected probably that demonstration to end the minute it began, you see?
Because that is always what we've been expecting. We've never had a peaceful demonstration whereby we have very civil police officers escorting the demonstrators to IEBC and then also leading them out of IEBC, and everything ends quietly. So Kenyans are used to seeing brutal force being used against them. And this is why now when they come prepared.
Okay. You spoke about the fatigue on the part of the police officers. We know that should not happen. But could there also be fatigue on the part of the residents so that in a matter of days this will end and the country reverts to normals?
You see, the demonstrators have the luxury of numbers. The police don't have. The same policemen that we are using today.
But the police have also the luxury of having the equipment.
They have the equipment. They have the equipment, yes.
Yes.
But remember, look at what happened in Egypt during the Arab Springs. People were changing shifts, the demonstrators. But we still had the same crop of policemen and military men trying to break the demonstrations. Fatigue got in, and this is how it ended the rule of Hussein Mubarak. And as I'm bringing it closer home, here we have people, the public has the luxury of numbers, the police don't have. And I'll give you a very good example. I've said, during Sabasaba riots, the riots started in Kamukunji. The next day Kamukunji was peaceful, we were being moved to Mathare and Huruma. When Mathare and Huruma went peaceful, we were being moved to Dandora. From Dandora, we were being moved to Kiambu. Fatigue was getting in slowly and slowly because we were the same officers that were running all over. And at the end of the day, people normally break. And we should not allow that. We should not allow ourselves to get there this time around, Ken. Let's have dialogue between the leaders of this country, the leadership of this country, and the IEBC. Let them iron out the issues that can be ironed out so that we go to an election that will be free and fair and it will be peaceful.
Okay.
But if we allow this to continue, now we are deploying resources that are supposed to be taking care of wananchi during going around their businesses to one particular point because we want to break up demonstrations that are actually legal.
All right. I bet we should take you to Mombasa right now, where the leaders are addressing the crowd there to listen in. In Mombasa, we have Peter Mwangangi, who will be reporting to us, telling us what's happening. And of course, in Kisumu, we'll be speaking to Oko Kusa. We have a team in the CBD just running around the CBD also to see what's happening in Nairobi. And we have Kennedy Muredi, who is at the Uhuru Park. We expect to link up with Kennedy Muredi to speak to us. And here in studio, we have George, who's also speaking to us about what's happening around the country. And George, unlike what happened last week in Nairobi, where there was a single protest at the IBC headquarters along University Way, today we understand they have split. So there's a team that has come to the CBD, and that's the reason why we're seeing the tear gas just around the Nation Center. And there's a team that is grouping up at Uhuru Park. In the morning when we were coming to work, there was heavy police presence already at Uhuru Park because they usually don't want the gathering first at Uhuru Park so that they don't have a point of departure. But looking at the strategy, does it also mirror to what you're saying? While the public will have the energy, the police will already have zoned off, sort of?
Yeah. That is exactly what I was pointing at. And remember, we might be pushing people out of the CBD. These protests will end up in the estates. Do we have enough policemen to contain that? Because tomorrow, they'll say, now we are not coming to the CBD, but let's do the protests in the estates. In the places like Kibera, you know, there have always been a flashpoint for protests. You'll get to Mathare, there'll be another protest there. And then when the police are pushed there, another strategy might be, let's stretch the police as far as we can, and then we move into the CBD. It's likely to happen, Ken. And that is why I've said we need to look for better ways of dealing with this. Because right now, yes, we are using the police. They're tear gassing people. Businesses have come to a standstill. And still, you'll find that these people have the energy. They were there last week. This week, today, again, they are here. We have prepared for them. The police are there on the streets. On Friday,
they'll come back.
They will come back, recharged. Yeah, this will continue. It will go on and on and on. And that is why I said it was continuing like this during Moi's era, and this is why he made a very wise decision and said, if the issue here is Section 2A, let us remove Section 2A. And then we went into elections in 1992. Very peaceful elections, because we saw where the problem was, and the problem was dealt with. Otherwise, when we start saying that, no, we must go to elections the way IEBC is constituted, and we have a group that is not agreeing with that, and the group that is now bringing the battle on the streets of the city and other major towns, then I believe we are not doing the right thing. Police presence alone will not be a deterrent for people to come out and protest. And remember, we are looking at a situation whereby these people are doing what they call peaceful demonstrations according to the Constitution. So why are we making it so difficult for them to congregate, do their demonstrations, picket, and go back home?
Okay. One of the things that a lot of people have been speaking of when they see the tear gas being lobbied or the water cannons on the street is reasonable force. In your opinion, and expert opinion, obviously, reasonable force, what does it constitute? Using reasonable force to flash out demonstrators or to disperse demonstrators?
Again, it depends on what you are facing. Reasonable force may include using live ammunition on the protesters, depending on the magnitude of the protest and what they're actually doing. For example, if we are just marching along the streets, you come and tell us disperse because this is illegal. We disperse. You don't need to use any force. We say what we normally say. We used to say that that is a show of force alone has made these people disperse. But if this mob now turns rioters and starts destroying property, then reasonable force might be using batons on them. Reasonable force might be using tear gas on them. And then you can even use the water cannon. Okay. But if things get out of hand and you realize now there's danger to life, danger to property, then the law allows you to use live ammunition. But this live ammunition, when you're using it, is supposed to be on command. Targeted people, targeted individuals, because the commander will identify you and say, I'm seeing the ringleader of this group is Ken, so let us eliminate Ken. And when he's saying you eliminate, not eliminating Ken, when he's saying that now I'll allow you to use live ammunition on Ken, he will even give you where to hit. He might tell you hit at the knees. Okay. So you aim
Immobilize
at the knees. Immobilize that person.
Look at those pictures from Kisumu, George. They are a little unstable because obviously Oko Kusa and our team have been taking in a lot of tear gas. One question is that, do the police feel this tear gas?
They feel the tear gas.
But how comes they are always in the thick of the tear gas?
They are always in the thick of the tear gas, Ken, because they are determined. Remember, there's that determination. And when they came prepared. Somebody will tell you, somebody was asking me a question, how do you deal with tear gas? I have been told that I need just to have water, wash my eyes, and
it doesn't work. I have tried it. Water doesn't work.
They'll tell you that. I mean, they have become experts unto themselves. So you'll find that in Kisumu, this is a determined group.
Look at the crowd in Kisumu, and it's just surging. And this is still the main street.
This is the main street.
This is still the main street, but this is running from Kisumu Boys, I think, all the stretch to KCB and then to Kenyatta. Let's just listen in and then come back to this discussion.
Chiloba must go.
All right. Live pictures from our team in Kisumu, where they are running battles. They had all the time to barricade the main roads using stones. And this is one of the main streets, if you have been to Kisumu. This is the one that runs between Kisumu Boys and I think the Kisumu Hotel, just before you take the turn towards the main street in Kisumu, which is Oginga Odinga. Now, in Nairobi, we understand that even our team, which was setting up at Uhuru Park, because of the tear gas, that are unable to take it any longer, but we try and speak to Ken Mijungu as soon as we can. This protest in Nairobi began at Kenyatta, the main street here, Kenyatta Avenue, and went straight to Uhuru Park, where there was a gathering. We'll try and link with our reporters, but I have Musamali George in studio talking to us about this. So changing of tact is what is likely to happen. In Kisumu, it looks as though, because initially in the morning when this began, we saw them even as far as Milimani. They were on the streets leading to Milimani, and right now they are right at the CBD, and in fact this is the main street heading to Kisumu Boys. So this is likely to happen, and on Monday and Friday this probably will translate. But your concern is, if they are not allowed to peacefully demonstrate in town, they may opt to stay within their estates, and that is where they'll be demonstrating.
Definitely, because we have an experience with that. It's not the first time it's happening. We've witnessed protests in Kibra, we've witnessed protests in Mathare, we've witnessed protests in Dandora. And Kisumu, obviously, places like Kondele, Nyalenda. Yeah? Because what will happen is that eventually, if these people cannot demonstrate peacefully within the cities, they'll move this to the estates. And as they do this, we'll still be stretching our resources, especially the security. Because I don't think we have enough policemen now to start running all over the estates within Nairobi, because this is where the protests will end up. And I think the same will happen in Kisumu. The number of police will be stretched, and things will continue getting worse by the day. That is why I've said, early enough, let's have dialogue, let the leaders sit down, let them agree on the way forward. These demonstrations, as they are, because people are congregating at probably Uhuru Park.
In Nairobi, Uhuru Park, yes.
Nairobi, Uhuru Park, in the hope of marching to the IEBC building. And already they are being dispersed. They're already being dispersed. So we're going to have running battles within the central business district all over, because these people are not going to surrender. See what is happening in Kisumu. Tear gas is being lobbied at them, but you'll find they still have the energy to engage the security forces. And I know from my personal experience, this is the same kind of scenario that we're going to witness in Nairobi. And remember, there's another threat now to security, whereby we have the business community within Nairobi saying that they're going to protect their property. What means are they going to use to do that? I mean, are they going to employ private militia? Because already the names of Mungikia is being mentioned here. And the danger, Ken, is that within Nairobi we have so many small gangs that can easily be bought to do this kind of stuff. I think it's going to be dangerous, not only to the NASA protesters, even to the security agencies themselves, because they'll now stand between fire from the two warring parties. So stones will be thrown from this end, and the other group also will engage.
Essentially, what the persons calling themselves the Nairobi business community were saying is that they want to protect their property in town. When we spoke to Ken Mijungu earlier on, what he told us is they saw the two groups. There was a small group that was assembling, and then the business community also assembled. Yesterday, the Nairobi governor said they have what it takes to protest the city. The city also belongs to the county government. And essentially what they are saying they want to do, George, is essentially what the police should be doing. That
is exactly the preserve of the police.
Then why have they been licensed to counter this demonstration?
I mean, this is why we're getting everything wrong, Ken. Because if we allow people... Remember, last week we talked about this. We said the Constitution allows peaceful demonstrations. And nobody told these people that there's going to be violence. Not unless they are the people that will come and start causing violence. The police are supposed to be there for both parties. Protect life and property of those that are not interested in getting engaged in these demonstrations, and also ensure that the demonstrators also have their constitutional right of a peaceful demonstration. That is the preserve of the police. So when we have a group of people coming up and saying that we are going to protect our property, then we are getting it wrong. What is the work of the police? The police is supposed to make sure that the businesses are not run uninterrupted. Business continues as usual. And as much as they are also providing security to this other group that is also carrying out its constitutional right. So nobody is supposed to come in and say that you're not going to demonstrate within Nairobi because you'll be destroying our property. Yet, it's a constitutional right enshrined in the constitution of this country. So the preserve of the police, the mandate of the police is to provide security to all, because all Kenyans have an entitlement to that.
Okay. Have Kenyans been cultured, George, to believe that when they see the police, it's about violence? Have they been cultured not to accept the presence of police? Because probably the police are also just there to protect them. But because of the distrust between the police, and you see that was probably someone's business that was hijacked, and probably by those people, someone who was selling fruits and eaten and just left there. But my question is it the culture in our mind? Is it our mindset? Is it the mindset of the police that when you see a demonstration, be ready for violence? Is it us as the members of public who believe that the police are just here to disperse us, and not just in a civil way, but in a violent way?
Ken, that is a culture that we've cultivated very well within the years, because we've never seen a peaceful demonstration in this country. Ever since we started picketing, we started by saying that we want Section 2A removed. All along the civil society, we've seen them on the streets of Nairobi. Rarely do these demonstrations end peacefully. And this is why now there's a mindset in the public that when we are going out for demonstrations, we expect to be violently dispersed.
Okay.
So you come prepared for that. And I think this is one culture that we need to remove from the people.
Okay.
Not only members of the public, but even the police. We should tell them that it's not a must that when you go out there to deal with protesters, you must disperse them forcefully. You don't need to use force on them. There are so many ways of doing this. And I gave an example of the doctors when they were at Railway Club. When the police came in and then read the riot act to them and told them, we want you to disperse, they actually dispersed very peacefully.
Okay.
We did not witness any form of violence.
Okay.
But this culture is here, it's with us, because members of the public, if they look at the police, they're looking at people that they feel they are there to antagonize them. They don't feel like the police. And in fact, what makes this worse is before we even get to the demonstrations, already people in the executive are already talking about it and threatening violence. I mean, that is what we had. They called for peaceful demonstrations, but somebody in the executive came out and said, we are not going to have these demonstrations every other day, and if you try and touch anybody's property, then we are going to deal with you ruthlessly. So already you're preparing this person for the worst. Instead of saying, yes, it's your right to demonstrate, we are asking the police, urging the police to provide security, make sure that these demonstrations are peaceful, but you should also know that you should not infringe on the rights of other people.
Okay.
People, life should continue. There must be continuity. Businesses should run. So tell us where you are congregating, which roads are you using to march to, anniversary towers, if it's anniversary towers, and then how long are you going to stay there so that we can plan for your security. But when we already start saying that we are expecting violence from these people, we are expecting destruction of property from these people, and then we deploy too much police not to protect the protesters so that they can carry out their protest peacefully, but to disperse them, then we are now making things unruly. Because at the end of the day, the people will decide by hook or crook, we have to be there. And that is exactly what we are seeing in Kisumu.
Okay.
The battle is there. We are seeing it already. It's happening in Nairobi. You've mentioned Kakamega. So within a very short time, I can assure you, Ken, that we have people who are pro-government and we have the people for the opposition. You'll start hearing demonstrations now against these demonstrations in the other areas that are pro-government, because they'll say, okay, now, if these are protesting, we are also starting to protest.
We need to protest. And we saw that last week.
Yeah, we need also to protest against them.
Okay.
Look at the whole country now, turning into a Tower of Babel, because we are not doing things the right way. We are not looking at the bigger picture and coming up with measures that will ensure the security and safety of all of us.
Okay, and it's very unfortunate, and we are getting updates from all over the country, and as at now we understand the protest in different parts, especially in Kisumu, which we have been showing, and that's where there's some violent protests. Right here in Nairobi, the police have endeavored to ensure that the protesters don't get anywhere near the IEBC headquarters, and have also ensured that they have dispersed the crowd and cordoned off their place of gathering, which was at Uhuru Park. We're still trying to find Kennedy Mureithi, who is on the streets of Nairobi, to tell us exactly what's happening. As soon as we do, we'll definitely be going to Kennedy Mureithi. In Mombasa, fairly peaceful, and Peter Mwangangi will be talking to us about that a little bit later on. And in Kakamega, we asked you, we understand there are protests in Kakamega and also in Migori. We are waiting for your feedback from those two locations. You can share with us on our social media platforms. You have them at NTV Kenya on Twitter, at Ken Mijungu. We'll try and look at them. But even as we wait for sports to tell us what's the latest from the desk, let me wind up the interview with George. So George, having experienced this now and again, and this is a subject that we definitely will still be discussing, ideally right now looking at what's happening in different towns, what should happen just in a nutshell between the police and the residents and the people who are not generally involved. We have offices in those locations. Look at Kenyatta Avenue, for example. We have offices. Look at the institutions around there, the students going to class. What ideally should happen? What would you advise the people who are coming into town? They know Kenyatta Avenue is bad. I saw Parliament Road earlier on, next to Serena Hotel. I saw City Hallway also. There were people who are running. We know that Uhuru Highway right now, because it's next to the Uhuru Park, definitely some activity. What would you want to tell them?
We've seen the police have done enough, because there was enough police presence on the streets, and I think the police are trying to ensure that the protesters do not disrupt normal life within the CBD, and this is why they have been positioned strategically in several streets to make sure that every life continues normally. But for us, people who are not involved in the demonstrations, please make sure that you get security updates.
Okay.
Because things change within a split. Because we can, as much as we have police presence, you might find yourself in between the protesters and the police.
Okay.
And you should avoid areas that have been cordoned off by the police. Stay safe inside the buildings. And if you have to get out, make sure you get out after confirming that everything has gone back to normal.
All right.
Because we've seen people, in most cases, the protesters don't get hurt. Ken, I can tell you from my experience, even when you go to the university incident, the people that were causing trouble rarely end up in the institutions.
Mm-hmm.
They'll cause trouble
and run so fast and
disappear in the streets.
Mm-hmm. And leave the innocent person.
And
like the student we watched last week,
yes.
right? Yes, being accosted at the gate.
Yeah, that is what happens. Even when we are dealing with the Sabasaba riots, the protesters were not people that you will chase and then they'll go into the estates.
Mm-hmm.
They'll find a way of getting away. And the people that you will find now are the innocent
ones. All right.
These are the innocent ones.
Okay.
So if you are innocent, please make sure you stay in a safe place and wait for word to go out.
If I'm caught in the middle of it, for example, walking a tear gas is lobbied,
you will be a collateral damage.
Okay.
Because there's no way now the police have the ability to identify who is a protester and who is not a protester.
Okay.
Because they're now dealing with a crowd. And this is why it's important for people to avoid areas where the demonstrators are congregating, and make sure that you stay in a place that is secure.
All right. Thank you very much, George Musamali, for speaking to us. He's a security analyst, and this is a discussion that doesn't end here. We'll still have him in studio, even on Friday, because we anticipate there'll be protests that will continue if at all the supporters of NASA heed to that call. But I now have a picture from someone has sent me from Kakamega, where it is reported that police violently disrupted demonstrations in Kakamega, led by the former Kakamega Senator, Boni Halwale. That's from a resident of Kakamega who's telling me that there were violent protests. Let's take you now to the streets of Nairobi. We've been calling from this, and Kennedy Mureithi has been walking around and seeing what's happening. Kennedy, please brief us. What's the latest from where you are?
Well, Ken, as I've told you earlier on, is that we've been following up what has been happening since morning. And a few minutes ago, we were able to come in close contact with what has been happening. If my cameraman can show, that is someone who's donning a Gor Mahia t-shirt, just passing here near the IEBC, and it is written "slow down." He is part of the protesters that have been going on, and they are calling it the Raila conspiracy, trying just to go on with that message. But we've been on Kenyatta Avenue a few minutes ago, and what we've witnessed is that there were several demonstrators who are walking on that Kenyatta Avenue as they headed all the way, trying to come round into the IEBC, that is Anniversary Towers, but the police were able to quell them. It is something that we had live exclusive footage there that you had on NTV. And it was until they got near I&M building whereby the police were able to disperse them using tear gas. Immediately they did that, we also saw a contingent, a vehicle from the police, the RDU, that is the Rapid Deployment Unit, of the police unit, that came and actually tried to quell them from where they were, and they were pushed all the way to Uhuru Park, whereby we also tried to follow them all that way. But that demonstration, as they walked all through that street, they were saying that it is a peaceful demonstration, and it is until they got near I&M that police actually shot tear gas in the air. They were the first to shoot, just to make sure that they do not pass. And we do understand the reasoning behind this is the fact that they do not want them to go all the way, get into town, so that they get into a confrontation with the Nairobi business community, a group that is calling themselves that, because they have been promising, even through a press conference they had yesterday, that they will disrupt such demonstrations if they will be organized. So police are really having a hard time trying to quell what is happening within these two factions, because the moment these two factions get together, then it might be fatal at that particular time. So police are really trying to contain, and the only way that they were to be contained through that point is for them to use tear gas. That is what we do understand from police officers who are not authorized to speak to media, but are telling us behind the scenes that if they do allow them to get into town, then there is going to be that confrontation, and it is not going to be good. So they were able to go all the way, to be dispersed through tear gas, and traffic was temporarily halted on that road on Kenyatta Avenue as they were being pushed back all the way to Uhuru Park, where they are trying to regroup, as we do understand. We've been there ourselves, and that is what we have seen. But here at this particular point where we are, it is police are trying just to cordon off any area that is near Anniversary Towers. On this end, just near Lillian Towers, police are making sure that this road is impassable to anybody who is in a group. The only people who are being allowed to pass here are either media or somebody who is just one. On the other end, just near the roundabout, the University of Nairobi roundabout, police are also there trying to control either traffic or people traffic by making sure that anybody who passes through that point is actually authorized to do so. So they are just making sure that these demonstrations that had been called are not materializing. We have also seen footage from other parts of Nairobi whereby they are trying to regroup and actually trying to come here. We are also getting reports that there are some arrests that have been made, something that we cannot independently confirm unless we go all the way to Parklands police station. We do understand that there are some people that have actually been arrested and taken all the way to that particular point, and these are demonstrators that were along Awayaki Road. These are just reports that we are getting, but we have not independently confirmed. But we will be going there in a few minutes just to confirm. But at this particular point, police are really trying to position themselves within the CBD to make sure that these demonstrators do not get anywhere near this particular point. Journalists are also just waiting at designated points as they make sure that nothing happens at this particular point. If my cameraman can walk with me, Charlo, please walk with me. There are police officers who are just seated here, and their work is just to wait in case something, that is the anti-riot police, just to wait and see whether these demonstrators will be coming through this place. And police, just as I've told you, Ken, and our viewers, is that they are positioned at different points within the central business district, because where the demonstrators were, we could not make where the police were, because they were allowed to come as far as I&M before they were dispersed. And this police just came out of nowhere. That is just to show you that the police have positioned themselves in different parts of the CBD, just to make sure that they do not come into contact with the Nairobi business community, as they do call them. But as of now, we are keeping vigilant, we are keeping tabs on what is happening within the city, just to give Kenyans a view of which roads to avoid and where and what is happening with regards to this. You'll remember that Raila said that he does not need to be the one who's leading these demonstrations, but he has foot soldiers all over who are ready to picket and also demonstrate for the common good of the country, just as he called it. But right now, it's back to you, Ken, in studio.
All right, Kennedy Mureithi reporting there from the University Way. Thank you, Ken. And keep out of trouble, carry some water because you need it for the tear gas. Kennedy Mureithi reporting for us the situation check around the CBD, Kenyatta Avenue, and right now at University Way. He'll be reporting at 1 at the top of the hour. Before we get back to the action, wherever it is, let's speak sports. And Warothe Kiru is in studio. Warothe?
Thank you, Mijungu. And you say before we get back to the action, normally that's a sport in term. And I know people are asking me whether we'll be going out to the streets to check out the latest Usain Bolt or the latest Julius Yegos, because of the talent that we are seeing being exposed in the riots, and we'll be seeing how that unfolds. But let's get sporty on NTV today and begin with golf. And experienced home golfer Andrew Chelogoi claimed the overall title of the first leg of the Barclays Bank Golf Series at the 9th hole Eldoret Golf Club's course. Handicap 5 golfer Chelogoi, who is the chairman of the club, beat a host of 100 golfers to emerge tops. Another home player, Natani Tororei, finished second, 5 points behind Chelogoi with 40 points. The young Tororei played 21 and 19 points in each 9. Former lady captain Esther Chumo completed the podium places with 39 points after beating Charles Nganga with a single shot to 38. Barclays Bank, the sponsors of Kenya Open, has started a 6-series tournament in search for amateur golfers ahead of next year's tournament to be staged at the Moitaiga Golf Club. Barcelona's Lionel Messi scored twice in a 3-0 win over Las Palmas in a La Liga match played without fans.
rating agency Standard & Poor's has affirmed Kenya's credit rating as stable, meaning the country is less vulnerable to non-repayment but faces major uncertainties. The rating, which is B+ and B plain, reflects a stable outlook and that the country's currency is likely to remain strong owing to the narrowing import and export gap and flexible interest rate regime. Kenya's rating is, however, constrained by history of ethnic tensions, low GDP per capita levels, high government budget deficits and debt. After the one-term expenditure related to the repeat presidential elections with reduced investment spending, the country's deficit will likely start to consolidate. Now, West Pokot government has rolled out a free vaccination program for animals against the contagious bovine pleural pneumonia, a bacterial disease that afflicts the lungs of cattle. The 10 million shilling vaccination program is said to control the spread of disease as well as improve the immunity of livestock, productivity and enhance marketing. County Veterinary Services Director James Merisia said the county will collaborate with neighboring Uganda to vaccinate animals across the border. West Pokot Governor John Lonyangapuo said the move will enhance the East African cooperation. The first phase of the program will target more than 30,000 cows and will take a week to help contain the disease. Now, camel milk producers in Isiolo County have a reason to smile after Anole Women Dairy Camel Milk Cooperative Society received a refrigerated delivery truck courtesy of their partnership with VSF International. The vehicle will provide much-needed relief to milk producers in the remote parts to face challenges in transporting the perishable product. The cooperative, made of more than 100 women, says the vehicle will enable farmers to obtain more income due to proper conservation and also sell the produce along the way to double their sales from 35 million shillings earned last year. They are asking the county government to establish a factory that will enable them carry out value addition.
Transporta ya badia na alikuwa natusumbua ni bei kali, lakini sasa serikali imetusaidia, tumepata gari. Basi ulikuwa tunaweka maziwa, hawa imetusaidia BSF. Sasa walikuwa tunaishi kando kando, hawa alitumwambia mkuje pale moja kwa group.
Maziwa inafika huko ikiwa baridi, kwa sababu maziwa mara nyingi bakteria inaongezeka wakati ikipata joto. Kwa basi hakuna refrigeration, imetoka kwa fridge, imekaa kwa basi, labda basi imeharibika njiani. Wakati nafika Nairobi, quality imedeteriorate kidogo. Lakini sasa kwa hii gari wanaweza kusimamisha pahali na wauze maziwa safi.
That is all that is happening in the business world this hour, but of course we'll be bringing you latest as the Kenya Private Sector Alliance responds to the IBC demos as constituted by the opposition party NASA. Back to my colleague Ken Mijungu, who will be bringing us up to speed with what is happening in the world of politics and news generally.
All right, thank you, Hudhaifa, very much. And earlier on, we had Warothi Kiru with all the sports. At Wareng, that's aka the Oath Keeper from Kakamega, says he is around the IBC office in Kakamega and there are no more demonstrations. Earlier on, we told you a demonstration led by Boni Halwale, the former Kakamega senator in Kakamega, was dispersed violently by the police, as we understand from residents of Kakamega. But that's not the only place. We are following up to see what's happening in Kisumu all morning and early afternoon now. We know there are still demonstrations going on. We'll be updating you at the top of the hour. That's in about 6 minutes. And in Mombasa, peaceful demonstrations right here in Nairobi. A lot of demonstrations have begun at Uhuru Park. We are doing all that. Plus, earlier on, we told you about the meeting by the education stakeholders where the CS, Fred Matiang'i, said everything will go as planned as exams are set to begin later this month. We'll give you all the details of the top stories and important stories around you. We're following up for you in about 5 minutes. Stay with NTV Today. My name is Ken Mijungu. Good afternoon. Stay with us. I'll be back right here in a matter of 5 minutes. Stay with us. Right, welcome back. That was the shortest 5 minutes this afternoon. Thank you for staying with us. My name is Ken Mijungu with all the news updates for you and incredible pictures and stories coming out of where you are. Earlier we reported Kakamega, there was a demonstration that had been dispersed by the police led by Boni Halwale. I have just seen an incredible picture from Trans Nzoia with only 2 people demonstrating and calling for the IEBC Secretariat to leave. The call from NASA. Good afternoon, and we'll be showing you other pictures from all over the country, the ones we have, that is. And we begin from Mombasa. That's where we find Peter Mwangangi. He's been reporting all morning about what's happening. Peaceful protest in Mombasa. Peter, tell us who else has joined the protest right there in the capital.
Thank you, Ken. Yes, indeed, the protests here in Mombasa have been very peaceful so far. The leaders came all the way from the Uhuru Gardens along Moi Avenue, popularly known as Mapembes and Ndovu. They came all the way to this particular area. We're just right opposite the governor's office here in Mombasa. The Deputy Governor of Mombasa, Dr. William Kingi, the MP for Vita, where we are currently, Abdul Samad Sharif Nasir is here. They are currently signing a memorandum which will be taken to the IEBC offices, not too far from where we are. And also we have the Senator of Mombasa, Mohamed Faki, the Member of Parliament for Likoni, Mishi Mboko, who was a woman representative of Mombasa County, and also the current woman representative of Mombasa County, Asha Hussein Mohammed. All of them are here, including MCAs and supporters. They've just paused here. They were addressing residents and saying they cannot go to elections with the IEBC as currently constituted. There must be reforms, because when the Supreme Court nullified the election, it showed that there were illegalities that were committed, and the same people cannot continue with the election. So what is happening right now, that is a memorandum which will be taken to the IEBC. A number of issues will be have been addressed in that memorandum. When we get it, we'll be telling you some of the issues that are being presented there. And I had also even forgotten that the Jomvu Member of Parliament, Badi Twalib, is here. All of these members, all of these leaders are from the ODM party. So far, those are the ones that we have seen. And from here now, they will be heading to the IEBC offices, which are not too far from where we are. But the IEBC offices here are strategically positions. They are actually right opposite the GSU camp, and a few meters from there we have the provincial police headquarters and also the State House Mombasa, and also Uhuru Nakazi building, which houses offices for the regional coordinator, that is Nelson Marwa. So we do not know whether they will be peaceful up until the time they present that memorandum to the police officers, rather to the IEBC. So the leaders are just getting underway there, moving, chanting Siloba must go as they head to the IEBC offices. And of course, we are going to keep you updated on everything that happens here in Mombasa. Ken?
All right, Peter, it's very loud behind you there, but we understand the protest in Mombasa it's been largely peaceful, Mwangangi. So thank you very much. We'll be linking up with you. I think on NTV Sasa, my colleagues will be speaking to Peter Mwangangi in about 25 minutes on NTV Sasa. But first, we understand that women leaders are meeting President Uhuru Kenyatta at State House. Let's cross over to State House right now and listen in.
Tuko na wakina mama wengi ambao wamechaguliwa katika vyeo mbalimbali kutoka governor mpaka MCA katika taifa letu la Kenya. Hakuna chama ingine imewahi kutenda haya. Najivunia pia kama Mkenya ya kwamba mama ambaye tulimnominate asimamie walemavu taifa la Kenya katika bunge ameweza kuchukua nafasi hiyo kwa muda wa miaka 4, na leo hii amechaguliwa na wananchi kama mama county kule upande ya Kajiado. Najivunia kwa sababu tukiangalia kwa serikali yetu, kwa mara ya kwanza serikali ya Jubilee iko na wakina mama 5 ambao wako katika cabinet ya taifa letu la Kenya. Na sio vile ilikuwa zamani kwa vyeo ndogo ndogo. Mambo ya nje, foreign affairs, ni mama. Mambo ya ulinzi wa taifa ni mama. Mambo ya wakina mama na vijana ni mama. Mambo ya environment ni mama. Mambo ya utendakazi, labor na East African affairs ni mama. Kweli ama sio kweli? Katika makatibu tuko na makatibu karibu 15 ambao ni wakina mama. Na nikiwa hapo nataka niwaulize wote kwa heshima kubwa sana, mukubali tusimame kwa dakika moja tumukumbuke dada wetu Mariam ambaye aliaga juzi, na ndio tumeweza kumpatia heshima. Asanteni sana. Najivunia kama Mkenya nikiona ya kwamba leo hii tukiongea tuko na zaidi ya wakina mama 15 ambao wanawakilisha taifa la Kenya.
President Uhuru Kenyatta addressing a delegation made up of women leaders meeting him at State House. We have a reporter at State House. We'll be getting all the details later on. You won't miss anything from the president's address. But let's now speak to Oko Kusa, I guess. Yes, Oko Kusa in Kisumu. We have Oko Kusa on phone who's joining us. Good afternoon, Oko. And we have seen quite a lot of activity in Kisumu. But what is the latest from Kisumu?
Protesters and sent them towards the Kisumu bus park. That is along Kakamega Road, heading towards Kibuye Market, all the way to Kondele. Earlier on, we had seen a lot of battle between the police and the protesters right within the CBD. That is along Oginga Street, where some of the protesters managed to gain entry and even the barricaded parts of the road. We've seen a lot of boulders along Oginga Street. Even as we speak, there are still some a group of protesters blocking that road and harassing motorists. Bonfires have been lit on that part of the road. So on this other side of Jomo Kenyatta Highway, there are also boulders on the road, and still that road is yet to be opened up. So police have sent the protesters towards the bus park, but there are some who have still managed to come back into the CBD. So there's an uneasy calm, as I may say, in town. Were caught unawares. They didn't expect that this protest will turn violent. They thought maybe it will be something like last week, where the demonstrators just walked through the streets and then returned to Kondele. But that, as we have witnessed, did not happen today. There's a lot of tear gas canisters being exploded here and there, and even gunshots in the air. So fortunately, nobody has been injured. We've not received any reports of that nature. So there's no casualty to report yet. And we believe that this will end calmly as things are picking up now. Ken.
All right. Oko, you say that no one anticipated that this protest could be violent. That calls in the question, how did they turn violent?
Okay, what is happening is that in the morning, a group of protesters gathered at Kondele, and their intention, actually they were being led by local leaders who have been Kisumu County Women Representative, that is Buyu, Kisumu Central Member of Parliament, Fred Outa, and a host of members of the County Assembly. So they gathered at Kondele, and their intention was to, march all the way to the CBD, to the IEBC offices. But then at a place called Kondele Police Station, there were some resistance by the police. Police actually, I think, had not planned to allow them to access the CBD today. So that is where the protest turned violent. At some point in Kondele, police were overrun actually, and they had to take off. Same to Kikuye Market, we also witnessed another incident where police had to take to their heels after the protesters overwhelmed them. So, the demonstration turned violent at that point when police tried to block them from marching towards the central business district. And thereafter, violence escalated all the way to the CBD. So we've seen a lot of running battles here and there, stones being thrown all over.
All right, Oko, now that we know the source of that violent, would you know if this protest was sanctioned also in Kisumu, or they just decided to get to the streets owing to the call that was made last week by the NASA presidential candidate Raila Odinga? Was the protest in Kisumu sanctioned? Did they seek for permission and police protection before holding the demonstration in Kisumu?
That is not clear, Ken. What we understand is that early in the morning, a group gathered at Kondele area. So it is not clear whether they sought police, protection or police permission to conduct today's demonstration, or if they were just responding to the calls by NASA leader, that is Raila Odinga. So that is not clear as we speak, Ken. But what I know is that today's protest actually attracted a huge crowd. It is not like more than triple of of the number of people who turned out last week for the protest. Today we witnessed a huge crowd that took over the entire Jomo Kenyatta highway, all the way from Kondele, as I said, there to the CBD. A few of them managed to get close to the IEBC offices, and there was a serious encounter between the protesters and the police. Actually, a lot of tear gas canisters were exploded in that part of town. So that is what has happened here today, Ken. As we speak, there's still an uneasy calm, as I've just said, and motorcycle operators, as you can hear in the background, riding around town with their horns blaring, still carrying on with the protest, even as police try to disperse the number of people who are turned out for this protest today. Ken.
All right, Oko Kusa, thank you very much from Kisumu. But could you have word from Kakamega? Just briefly, we heard there was a protest in Kakamega. Are you aware of the protest in Kakamega?
Yes, we had there were similar protests in Kakamega, but nothing compared to what is happening in Kisumu. But yes, indeed, we have come to, it has been brought to our attention that there were similar protests in Kakamega, and even in Migori, we are made to understand that there are similar protests happening down there. So we'll get you more information, more clarification on what is happening in those other parts of Nyanza as the day go by, Ken.
Kusa, remember safety first. Thank you very much for reporting. And as the uneasy calm returns to the streets of Kisumu, we'll be speaking to Oko Kusa later on, and NTV Sasa, our team will be here. Probably they'll also speak to him. But let's come back to town. That's Nairobi. And Kennedy Mureithi has been on the streets trying to follow up what's happening. And he now joins me live. Kennedy, where are you right now? And what's happening where you are?
Well, thank you very much, Ken. Just as you've said, is that there is a serious uneasy calm within town. We are here on Koinange Street, just at the joinery before you get onto University Way, leading into Anniversary Towers, where IEBC is housed. And I can tell you that whatever is happening within the city at this particular time and on this day is seriously affecting business. Along these streets, that is on Koinange Street, a lot of businesses have actually closed down. If my camera person can be able to show, this is ABC Bank, and whoever is being allowed inside there is actually anybody with a serious matter, not just anybody. There are police officers who are even guarding that place. This is Bliss Medical Center, just next to ABC Bank, and anybody who's being allowed there's actually minimal access at this particular point. And next to it, there is also a club. And anybody who is being allowed there, also you can see there are people who are being allowed to stand at the door, and that is the security to that particular club. There is just business has been affected seriously on this particular day. Most of the places that we've been going around, Ken, the situation is the same. And you'll remember that the Nairobi business community, as they've been calling themselves, is that they said that business has seriously been affected by the call to mass action by the NASA brigade, whereby they were saying that it has been since elections they have not been able to make any substantial movement with regards to business, and that is what has been going on. And with the demonstrations having been called between Monday and Friday, it now complicates the matter because people will now be living in fear, and that is what has been happening. Earlier on, we were able to witness first-hand demonstrators being dispersed by police officers, that is along Kenyatta Avenue, because we've been able to go around the CBD. There were youths who are regrouping or grouping from Uhuru Park before they started walking all the way into town, and on Kenyatta Avenue, that is where they met a group of police officers who were able to disperse them from that particular point. And the police are using tear gas just to make sure that these people do not come into town, with the aim of making sure they do not meet with the Nairobi business community, as they are calling themselves, because there is a probability that they might clash, and in them clashing, there might be a serious war, because they are saying that they do believe that what is happening is that they want to paralyze business completely, but they are not going to give them that benefit, because they know that whatever they have is their livelihood. And at this particular point, Ken, just pointing out is that businesses continue to be hurt. Protesters we do understand, are trying to regroup, but police are placed everywhere within town just to make sure that they do not get within IEBC, or they do not get in contact with the Nairobi business community, as they call themselves, just to evade that clash that may happen. Here at this particular point, there are police officers who are manning this road. This is the junction between Koinange Street and University Way. That is where police are stationed. Also on the other side, that is the roundabout, the Nairobi University roundabout. There are also police who are positioned at that place. Outside Anniversary Towers, there are police who are also positioned across that point, just to make sure that nobody gets to this particular point. What is happening is that they are just trying to regroup outside the CBD, trying to get into the CBD, but they cannot get that opportunity at this particular point, because police say if they do, then it is going to be something different. You'll remember Raila has said that he does not have to be there for the demonstrations because generals don't go to war, but he expects people who are his foot soldiers to go out for war, to go out and demonstrate in what he says is a call for justice, Ken.
All right, Kennedy Muredi reporting from the junction between Koinange Street and the University Way. That is just next to the IBC. That is where the demonstrators were heading. And the police, as he says, are concerned with a possible clash or confrontation between the Nairobi business community and NASA supporters who have taken to the street, calling for the IBC officials to exit the stage, paving way for the October 26th general election. Kennedy Muredi will be speaking also to our team on NTV Sasa a little bit in about 15 or 10 minutes. So he'll be back on air with an update from the CBD. Now let's move on to other stories that are also making your headlines at this particular hour. The National Super Alliance presidential running mate, Kalonzo Musyoka, has faulted Jubilee lawmakers for amending elections laws before the fresh presidential election. Actually, they've not been amended, but that's in progress. Now, Kalonzo, who was speaking after the service at church service at the AIG Kianda in Machakos County, says the amendments are unacceptable and will give the ruling party an unfair advantage. He says NASA will keep insisting on the reducible minimums of holding key IEBC officials to account and having suppliers and service providers at the IEBC who led the nullification of the presidential election results held culpable.
may I advise to President Uhuru Kenyatta na Ruto na Jubilee, don't take this country that way. Recognize the importance of national unity. One side of government ambayo ni Jubilee haiwezi kwenda kupitisha sheria za kuleta kuhujumu mahakama kuu na kuhujumu demokrasia Kenya hii. Wakenya hawatakubali. Kwa hivyo hii maandamano sio ya kuwatoa wale ambao ni wakora, wale ambao waliiba kura wa IBC, lakini pia ni kusema tunakatalia mbali kurekebisha sheria. Uwezi ukabandilisha sheria wakati wa half time ya mchezo wa mpira. Hiyo haiwezekani. Hata unabadilisha wewe peke yako. It puts this country in very poor light, not just in Kenya, but regionally and the world over.
Right, the concerns of NASA and many, many more people. Now, to some good news, because it's not all about politics. This is good news for the ladies, the women, and the next generation of contraceptives have been launched right here in the country. The new copper female intrauterine ball aims at offering safety and improve user experience for women. The new device, as opposed to the commonly used T-shaped copper IUD, has minimal complication, and it's believed that the new technology will reduce medical challenges faced through the use of the current device. The copper ball, shortened as IUB, will be used on a trial on 100 women, but will also be available for sale at 10,000 shillings. So far, it's used in 19 countries globally. It was developed by an Israeli gynecologist, that is Ian Barham, and first to be used in 2013.
For women and couples, for their family planning, and options that are really innovative and provide a lot of value to couples.
Now, the main issues with the T-shaped IUDs are that they are actually flat, non-symmetrical, and they are inserted into the uterus, which is actually a cavity. And so when you take a non-symmetrical flat object into a cavity, there's a high chance that it will be malpositioned inside the uterus.
West Pokot government has rolled out a free vaccination program for animals against the contagious Boriba pleura pneumonia, as a bacterial disease that afflicts the lungs of cattle. The 10 million shilling vaccination program is said to control the spread of the disease, as well as improve the immunity of livestock, productivity, and enhance marketing. Country Veterinary Services Director James Merisia said the country will collaborate with neighboring Uganda to vaccinate animals across the border. West Pokot Governor John Lonyangapuo said the move will enhance the East Africa Cooperation. The first phase of the program will target more than 30,000 cows and will take a week to help contain the disease. The disease is also known as livestock lung disease.
Pokot North Sub-County ni karibu 300 na 80% ilikuwa imeenda Uganda. Hiyo ni karibu 240,000. Ilikuwa imebaki tu, estimate yetu ni karibu hiyo imebaki ni 60,000. Ndio unaona tulisema kwamba wacha tuchanje wenye, ingawaje wamerudi saa hii, tukasema wacha tuchanje ili tuzuie magonjwa. Kulikuwa kuna fununu kwamba kuna ugonjwa huko Uganda. Tukasema wacha tuchanje along the border ili tuzuie. Kwa hivyo yetu ni tunataka kuzuia, tutaki mpaka ugonjwa ikuje.
Tunataka kutarget no less than 30,000 cows. Alafu kuna zingine, of course area hii tuko na ng'ombe wengi. Na that's why we are livestock keepers. Na nikimalizia wakilisha ng'ombe yetu ambayo tunafuka na kulisha hapa iko sawa. Tukiuza ya ng'ombe Dakureti Nairobi, Bomala huko Bungoma, mahali market yetu kubwa iko, tuuze ng'ombe ambayo iko disease free.
Football fixtures in association with Bet-In. Cheza nasi, bet nasi. Start playing right away. Bet-In, cheza nasi, bet nasi.
All right, let's take a look briefly at sports. And champions Bayern Munich wasted a 2-goal lead for the second straight week to draw 2-2 at Hertha Berlin in Inter-coach Willi Sago's debut following the midweek sacking of Carlo Ancelotti. Goals from Mats Hummels in the 12th minute and Robert Lewandowski after the break look set to get the Bavarian. At the 9-hole Eldoret Golf Club course. Handicap 5 golfer Chelogoi, who is the chairman of the club, beat a host of 100 golfers to emerge top. Another home player, Natari Torure, finished second, 5 points behind Chelogoi with 40 points. The young Torure played 21 and 19 points in each. 9 former lady captain Esther Chumo completed the podium place with 39 points after beating Charles Nganga with a single shot to 38 for 4th place, and Kiran Shah losing with a similar score to Nganga. Right, thank you very much for watching NTV today. My name is Ken Mijungu. Ready in studio is Jane Goiri and Nimrod Tabu, ready with NTV Sasa. She's waving at me right there. They'll be right back in about 5-6 minutes, so stay with us. Good afternoon.